Chair, you have a live mic.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to our County Commissioner meeting. It's a pleasure having all of you here today. We're going to probably have a fairly short meeting, so if you have anything to say anything that you want to when you come to the podium, because we have plenty of time today. We're very fortunate today to have Pastor Kirk Anderson to start us off in the right way. If you'd please rise for the invocation and the pledge to the flag.
Let's bow together. Our gracious God, in a season when trust of government is in short supply, when hardworking staff are labeled as bureaucrats, and when a decision is the source of derision, we pray for our commission. Day and night, the heavy hand of discipline is upon them, bearing the burden of governance on our behalf. Strengthen them, assure them, and may we all be respectful and civil. Agreement is easy, but we as a people must learn how to disagree again. We need your guidance, your patience, and your discipline. Thank you for the gift of these servants and their arduous efforts to rightly serve this community. We pray in the name of your incarnate love. Amen.
Amen. Please rise. Good morning.
Can I have everybody stand, put your hand over your heart?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank you for leading the pledge. Ms. Patterson is going to spend just a minute telling us a little bit about your history, because I understand you were a dust-off pilot in Vietnam, and some very dangerous missions in terms of picking up wounded soldiers and not having any weapons on board to defend yourself. So very impressive. Ms. Patterson, you had a few comments there?
Yes, so we do have the honor of having Jack Cooper. He is for Army 1968 to 1993, and as Commissioner Saunders said, a dust-off pilot in Vietnam, which we've been educated that is people that flew and picked up wounded soldiers without the benefit of being armed. So thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on to the approval of today's regular consent and summary agenda. We'll go see if there are any amendments to that. Ms. Patterson?
Yes, sir. We do have one change to the agenda. We our request to move item 16D7 to 11C. This is a recommendation to approve and authorize the chairman to sign agreement number LHTF 25-01 with Housing Development Corporation of Southwest Florida, Inc., doing business as HELP, in the amount of $50,000 to operate and administer the Collier County Land Trust. This is being moved at Commissioner McDaniel's requests. Other than that, we have court reporter break set for 10 o'clock and again, or I'm sorry, at 10:30 and again at 2:50 if necessary. County Attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Caldwell, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
And also disclosures on the summary and consent.
And no, nothing on summary or consent.
Commissioner Hall?
No changes and no ex parte.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Same, no changes, no ex parte.
Commissioner LoCastro?
Same, no changes, no ex parte.
And I have no changes and no ex parte as well. So we need a motion to approve today's regular consent and summary agenda.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It passes unanimously. We have the minutes of January 28th, 2025. Are there any questions or comments concerning the minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. We have some special awards today. So let's start off, Ms. Patterson.
Yes, sir. Let's start with our 20-year attendees. First, we have Fausto Leyva, Parks and Recreation. Congratulations.
Figured it out, yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
you, sir.
Next up, we have Tanya Santos, Domestic Animal Services, 20 years. Congratulations.
How come they don't cheer like that for you? Just kidding. Really? Playing a tune with it.
Moving on to 25 years, Joanne Greenberg, Code Enforcement, a Contractor's Licensing Section. Congratulations. We are going to hold on our next attendee because actually she's just getting off shift for EMS. So as soon as she gets here, we will bring her up and honor her. So that brings us to our 35-year attendee, Lisa Taylor, Fiscal and Grant Services, Transportation Management Services. Congratulations.
After we take the first photo, if the team would like to come on up for a photo, you're welcome to do so.
Here we go. Smile on three. 1, 2, 3. Oh, ready?
Keep moving.
On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Anybody else want? Let's do another.
Yes, lady. Tanya, your group next, since you got a big group here too. If you want to take a photo.
No cats.
Oh my God, look at Tony all South Beach. Look at Tony all South Beach. Tony, you working today? You working from home? What's going on?
All right.
We don't do that anymore. We're all in the office.
We want 5 things what you've done.
All right.
We want the bullets.
We're gonna do 2 photos here. One with everybody smiling and doing the thing you usually do in photos, and then one with everybody holding their pom-poms or whatever those things are called up, all right? So the first photo is a more serious one.
Let me know when you're ready. Ready? Want to smile on 3. 1, 2, 3. And then on 3, do your thing. 3.
Always one.
Never to be. Nobody puts baby in a corner.
So we're going to smile again. Don't move on 3. 1, 2, 3. And then go ahead. 1.
Thank you. Hey, 35 years, that's really amazing, so thank you for your service to Collier County.
Tanya, want to come up with her group? That was.
Is Tanya still here? All right.
Tanya, can you outdo that with your group? Okay.
Oh,
come
okay.
on. All right.
Ready? Smile. 1, 2, 3. So you're gonna.
It's not a video.
Are you going to
Way to woohoo. Are you gonna woohoo?
You gonna yoo-hoo?
Another group photo.
Oh,
There we go, fan club.
Really?
James was begging, I know he was.
James, man, he looked like he just came back from the White House or something. Look at him.
yeah, look at you. Come back with a job interview or something?
Smile. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
You gonna woohoo?
You guys don't?
We'll move on to proclamations. Ms.
Yes, sir.
Patterson?
Let me be sure that our first proclamation, if Miss Irving is here. Okay, very good, very good. All right, so 4A is a proclamation designating March 8th, 2025 as International Women's Day in Collier County, to be accepted by Althea Irving, Chairwoman, Women's Foundation of Collier County. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Troy got in on this.
Are you gonna woo-hoo?
Where's your woo-hoo?
Any pom-poms? Is it?
Very good.
Good morning, commissioners and fellow community members. Thank you for this incredible recognition of International Women's Day here in Collier County. On behalf of the Women's Foundation of Collier County, I am honored to accept this proclamation and to stand with you in celebrating the achievements and contributions of women in our community. For over 20 years, the Women's Foundation of Collier County has been dedicated to transforming the lives of women and girls in our region. Through initiatives that support homeless senior women, mentorships and career development for young girls, and women pursuing education, we are working to ensure that every woman, no matter her circumstances, has the opportunity to thrive. Today's proclamation is more than a symbolic gesture. It is a powerful acknowledgement that women who are supported, our entire community benefits from that. By investing in women, we create stronger families, a more vibrant workforce, and a future where every girl growing up in Collier County knows that she has the tools, resources, and encouragement to succeed. Thank you again for recognizing March 8th, 2025 as International Women's Day in Collier County. We are grateful for your partnership in fostering a community where women and girls are empowered, uplifted, and celebrated, not just today, but every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4B is a proclamation designating November 1st, 2025 as Lung Cancer Screening Awareness Day, to be accepted by Scott Lowe, CEO, Physicians Regional Healthcare System, and Nikki Audia, Lung Navigator. Congratulations.
You're going to have to explain to us what a lung navigator does.
Follows the lung map.
You get that on Google? Thank you.
Hey, congratulations. Yeah, good. So there's two of them, right? Lungs? Right? You got it? Okay, I got it. Got it.
Ash and nail.
You have that iron one. Get that coupons to Marlboro.
Yeah.
Save rock stops.
Ready? Here we go. We're gonna smile on 3. 1, 2, 3.
And I'm going to turn it over to Nikki so she can explain everything long. But I just wanted to quickly thank the county commissioners for continuing to kind of stop, recognize, these health issues and concerns that, we are all here, with Physicians Regional, NCH, you name the healthcare entity. But you guys continue to help and support those initiatives and help us recognize and bring that awareness to the community. So thank you. And
I'll mention one thing. Last time I was over at Physician Regional, it was for the FC Naples event, and so thank you for being a primary sponsor for that team.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited for that partnership and certainly excited for them to be in this community. So great. Thank you. There's Nikki.
Good morning. It's an honor to stand here before you today as we formally recognize Lung Cancer Awareness Month. While November is the designated month to raise awareness for this disease, today in February, we come together to sign this proclamation, ensuring when November arrives, our community is ready to amplify this very important message. Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer-related deaths in our nation, and I'm sure nobody in here really knew that. And in women alone, lung cancer kills more women than ovarian and breast cancer. Today, we are here not only to raise awareness, but stand together in support of those affected by the disease. Lung cancer does not discriminate. It impacts smokers, non-smokers, and individuals exposed to environmental risks. The key to fighting this disease lies in early detection. Screening saves lives, and I urge everyone that meets the criteria to speak with their healthcare provider about being screened. When diagnosed early, treatment options are more effective and survival rates improved significantly. We are fortunate to have an incredible resource right here in our community. Like Scott said, NCH Physicians Regional Lee. Dedicated healthcare providers, cutting-edge screening programs, and organizations committed to patient support and research. These local resources provide hope, tangible support for those battling lung cancer and for their families. Advancement in treatments and research continue to offer new hope, but our fight is far from over. We must continue advocating, funding research, and policies that ensure access to life-saving screening tools. As we recognize Lung Cancer Month, let's honor those we've lost, support those who are fighting, and commit to spreading awareness together as a community. Thank you again for sponsoring this proclamation. It is extremely important to our community to spread awareness about lung cancer screening. Early detection really is the only way. And I'll just give you one quick note, because I know I will talk your ear off, and I know we have just a little bit of time. But one unique thing about lung cancer is your lungs do not have nerve receptors. So you don't know you have lung cancer until it's too late. Usually you become symptomatic and you're no longer eligible for a lung cancer screening, which is covered by most of your insurances if you meet the criteria. Just like a colonoscopy or a breast exam. Lung cancer screening, unfortunately, is not part of the HEDIS guidelines, despite the fact that it's the leading cause of cancer. That is hopefully going to be changed soon, but when you go into your primary care office, they're not going to bring up that screening to you. So advocate for yourself, advocate for your community. It's extremely important. It's an important conversation to have. And I'll leave you there.
I have just a couple real quick questions.
Sure.
This may be an opportunity to put a plug in for anti-smoking issues. What percentage would you say
That's
of
a great
lung
question.
cancer patients are lung cancer patients, or how many of those were smokers?
Actually, 25 to 28% in our community are non-smoking individuals. And we're seeing people in their 20s, 30s, that are not smoking. That's a big problem, is people associate lung cancer with smoking, and there's a huge stigma with lung cancer. People that have been in the military, your firefighters, your police officers, people that have worked in, believe it or not, lung cancer, the second leading cause of lung cancer is radon exposure. The first obviously being smoking, the second being radon exposure. And then there's genetics. Believe it or not, 6 of my family members have passed away of lung cancer, and I have never ever been asked to be screened for lung cancer before. Most places offer out-of-the-pocket for lung cancer screening. You go in and it's a low-dose CT scan of your lungs, and they can detect lung cancer. Your survivability, if you catch it in early stages, is 80%. 80%. When it gets to stage 3 and 4, you have less than a 2 to 4% of living because it metastasizes throughout your lungs. So I even urge you as the commissioners, push this, talk about this with your firefighters or your people that are exposed to different environmental things. I'm sure some of you up there qualify to have a free lung cancer screening. Get a lung cancer screening done. Talk to your providers about this. Again, some of these physicians, when you go in there, they're working at 99% capacity. They don't have the opportunity to sit there and talk to you about, colonoscopies, about breast exams, about lung, because they have to have that shared decision with you. And unfortunately, they're at the bandwidth. So bring it up, advocate for yourself, advocate for the people that work for you at your health fair. Invite NCH, invite us. I will talk to you about lung cancer screening all day. Trust me, when people walk by my office, I have to keep the door closed because people take the other way. Because I'm always talking about lung cancer and the importance of lung cancer. And really, nobody really realized that lung cancer was so prevalent, and it was huge because you don't see people wearing white ribbons. You see people wearing pink ribbons, despite the fact that it's far surpasses women's cancer with breast and ovarian cancer combined. So it's
Well, thank you for that. And one of the points that I wanted to make based on those statistics is if 25% of lung cancer patients were non-smokers, I think that means 75% were smokers.
yes, correct.
And the point is cigarettes cause lung cancer. So that was
Yes.
one of the messages I thought we would try to get out this morning.
Yes, that is the leading cause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, public comments, Ms. Patterson?
If we could get a motion to accept the proclamations?
All right, we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the proclamations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Yes, that brings us to item 7, public comments on general topics not on the current or future agenda.
We have 4 registered speakers this morning. Your first is Jay Colhagen, and he'll be followed by Jacob Colhagen.
No relation.
Bringing in troops.
Good morning.
Jay Collier for the record. How you guys doing? Just want to throw some of this out here that I've been reading up on. Anyway, moving on here. Arizona, Connecticut, Florida, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Maine, Pennsylvania, Missouri, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Wyoming, and Minnesota. What do these 24 states have in common? They're states making legislation to protect their constituents from geoengineering and weather modification experiments. We know Congress mandated to fund these geoengineering projects without a single study of the effects of the human health, or not even a single vote was passed from we the people giving our consent. We know now because we can see now in where our tax is being paid and sent via website, usaspending.com. Florida Senate Bill 56 would ban attempts that would cause or disperse rain, snow, fog, or other atmospheric conditions. We all need to support this. We need to make our sky blue again. I got another one here. A proposed cell tower where the skunk ape roams in the Big Cypress National Preserve is coming under fire with the locals around there. We need to better look at the location. Cell towers will be obsolete in the near future. I don't know why they continue to put these things up. It's like ramping up production on horse carriages when the Ford Model Ts are rolling off the assembly line. It's just stupid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next speaker is Jacob Colhagen. He'll be followed by Francis Cook.
Jacob Colhagen for the record. Today I stand before you and talk about an issue that has sparked concern and curiosity worldwide. Chemtrails. These are visible streaks in the sky, often mistaken for simple contrails, but some believe they are part of a larger, more troubling agenda. While there are many theories surrounding chemtrails, one thing we can all agree on is the importance of transparency and accountability in the actions that affect our environment and health. We live in a world where Integrity of our air and atmosphere is critical to our well-being. If chemicals are indeed being dispersed without the public's knowledge or consent, it undermines our right to a safe and clean environment, whether it's for weather modification, geoengineering, or undisclosed purposes. We must question the long-term impact of such actions on our planet, wildlife, and future generations. Removing the chemtrails is not just about eliminating the visible streaks in the sky. It's about ensuring that the policies impacting our environment are done transparently, ethically, and with our best interests at heart. We deserve to know what is happening in our skies and trust that our health and safety are the priorities. We want our
Jacob?
sky blue again.
Yeah, Jacob, before you run, where do you go to school?
I homeschool.
You homeschool, wonderful. You did a great job, very well spoken, very poised, and congratulations on that. And are there any?
How old are you?
I'm 13.
Outstanding.
All right, thank you for your presentation.
Your next speaker is Francis Cook, and he'll be followed by Joe Hunt.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Hard times create strong men, and strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Mr. Chairman, I stand before you as a weak man who has created hard times for myself and for my family. I've acted like a boy trapped in a man's body for 25 years, enduring unhealed emotional wounds from my childhood, being out of touch with my masculinity, and wearing a mask to try and be the person I thought others wanted me to be. Hitting me like a ton of bricks, this realization is forcing me to confront several character flaws, including selfishness, arrogance, and emotional immaturity. Unconscious beliefs about my self-worth, my potential, and my view of the world have formed a destructive pattern of thinking, resulting in desperate needs for validation from others, in a scarcity mindset that has caused hesitation and missed opportunities, and in refusing to play my part in raising our collective consciousness. These beliefs were formed primarily by my parents and cultural influences, such as the school system, the entertainment industry, my peer group, and even the government itself. And while it's true that these external influences did subconsciously program my mind throughout my life, blaming others, blaming circumstances, and blaming the systems of this world would be a cop-out. Mr. Chairman, I must take full responsibility and ownership of every aspect of my life by admitting my faults, by gaining an awareness of patterns of behavior, and by committing to a relentless self-discipline to become a strong and honorable man. It says in Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And so I've made this public declaration to invite scripturally based guidance and correction, to state my intentions to embrace a servant's heart, and to receive accountability for matching my actions with my words. I'm also making this public declaration to break the stigma about men's mental health and to show how important it is to embrace vulnerability, to face uncomfortable emotions, and to know that freedom is not something to be pursued and obtained. Rather, freedom is something that is cultivated inwardly by uprooting limiting beliefs, interrupting destructive patterns of behavior, and taking massive, disciplined action to embrace the fullest potential in life. Freedom, Mr. Chairman, is an inside job. And so as we move into America's golden age, I believe our families, our communities, and the women in our lives are depending on men to do our inner work and step into the best versions of ourselves so that we can lead with love, with righteousness, with wisdom, and with strength. Let's create good times again.
Mr. Cook, before you leave, one quick comment, and Commissioner Hall has a comment as well. It takes a lot of courage to come before a group like this on TV and admit that you have some faults. We all have faults, but most of us aren't willing to get up and talk about them. So I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
And I know this type of setting will hopefully help you as you progress in your journey. Mr. Hall. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Cook, thanks for your humility.
My pleasure.
God resists the proud, but he's with the humble. And so I just want to encourage you. The words that you hear form the thoughts in your head that lead to emotions. Those emotions will lead to decisions that you make. The decisions that you make, you'll take action on. From those actions, you'll create habits. The habits that are created will form your character, and the character that you create will take you to your destiny. So if you find yourself listening to the wrong words and having the wrong thoughts, peel it backwards. If you find your emotions are out of whack, peel it backwards. Go back to what you're listening to, what you're reading. Just want to encourage you with that.
I appreciate both your words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final registered speaker for item 7 is Joe Hunt.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's meant to be. The previous speakers before kind of hit the sentiment that I have about this country. And the advice the same. Let's go back to the original. Now, I don't think I have to give a grand lecture about the Constitution and our oaths of office, right? I've taken the oath of office. I assume many of us have ourselves, right? So, I am a man here to lawfully redress my grievances. I bought a house in Naples, 2667 Lakeview Drive, right next to Dr. Angel Herrera, 2649. Within the first few months, he's committed a trespass, egregious trespass, by altering the seawall and installing a drain pipe. So you have some photos here. If I can get to it quickly enough. Well, either way, it's creating a major flooding condition, meaning the water now, because I have installed 11 ton of rock. The water now comes through his driveway. This is before the water crested the seawall. Came through the driveway, filled the field across the street. I've been in long-term litigation. So I'll get to the crux of the matter. Oh, this is the upkeep of the house. So when I say my civil liberties shredded, I'm talking about disparity of enforcement. I've made multiple complaints to John Johnson. Now, the who, what, when, and where, I think, has been answered. You know, the when I first moved in, the what, the alteration of the seawall, installing a drain pipe with no clapper valve, meaning boom. Plus, as by other, under deposition, the wall's a mess. But the why and the who, because through this litigation process, I've had some of the big construction companies of Southwest Florida under deposition, such as Grady Morin, Michael Herrera, Mark Morin, Tim Hall, Building Naples Pier, right? John Johnson, Senior Building Inspector. They are defending a seawall that has admittedly had a repair by Dr. Herrera, unlicensed, uninsured, no diagrams. These guys figured a way to get it back permitted. But this is the reason why I'm here, because through litigation, I'm looking at the overheads. Now, my house is in the red, okay? You're looking at the Windstar up here. The water comes out Lakeview Drive. Now, this is the center point in the town. Now, why would all these construction people be digging in to protect a house that's collapsing? As a matter of fact, why did they purchase a house, and why did not his brother fix the wall? Because I believe their intention is to flood out the neighborhood. Because due to this, like an arson investigation, as a previous fireman, we will find it by the lowest point on the wall where the fire started. So therefore, if you take a funnel and you use the funnel strategy from this point on, going upwards, well, this would be south, that is flooding out this entire region here.
Mr. Hunt, okay, you're going through an awful lot of information that I don't think any of us can fully comprehend.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm going to suggest to you, I don't know what commission district you're in, but perhaps you could set up a meeting with the commissioner from your whatever district that is.
Sir, I'm just here to hold everyone liable and put this on record.
Okay, that's fine.
Bayshore
Well, wait, stop.
is under
Please.
serious distress.
All right. Your time is up then. I was going to make some recommendations, but your time is up.
No problem.
We'll see you at the next meeting.
I have other constitutional work to attend to, but I will be seeing everyone, especially after this gentleman's pool collapses and the road collapses.
Mr. Hunt, please.
Then we'll be talking about more serious charges.
Hunt, Your time's up. All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes, sir. That brings us to items 11. Item 11A is a recommendation to hear a presentation regarding FY 2026 budget policy and provide guidance as we move towards budget policy adoption in March. Mr. Christopher Johnson, Division Director of Corporate and Financial Management Services, is here to present.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Chris Johnson, your Director of Corporate Financial and Management Services, for the record. We're here today to kick off our FY26 budget year with a brief budget policy discussion. Today we're going to talk about the FY26 budget timeline, budget funding overview for FY25, economic indicators, ad valorem history. We'll go briefly through the priority-based budgeting approach that we'll be utilizing this year for the second year. And we'll have a budget policy discussion on some high-level policy issues, followed by next steps. The first thing I'm going to go over really briefly is everyone's favorite calendar here. Starting with today, we're having our FY26 budget policy discussion. Next week, we'll be having our strategic plan and priority-based budgeting workshop on Tuesday the 4th. The following week, on March 11th, we'll be adopting the BCC budget policy. And I'm going to skip through a few of these to give you guys some important tentative dates for this year, for the FY26 budget cycle. The June workshops are tentatively going to be scheduled for June 19th and June 20th, which is a Thursday and a Friday. The proposed maximum millage rate adoption is on the 8th of July, which is a regular board meeting, a Tuesday. And finally, the first public hearing is tentatively scheduled for September 4th, and the second one on September 18th, 2025. Any questions on the schedule before I move on? All right. We'll start with the FY25 budget overview just to orient everyone on the current year budget. This first slide here, this first chart depicts the net adopted budget for the county. The net adopted budget is $2.1 billion. As you can see from this chart, we have substantial reserves at $691 million. Our physical environment, which is our water sewer district, solid waste, stormwater, and beach renourishment, comes in a second there at 21% or $442 million, followed by public safety at $382 million or 18%. This chart here depicts our sources of current county government operating revenues. Now this is for all funds. As you can see, ad valorem is our main source. Ad valorem or property taxes are our main source of revenue at 47% or $573 million, followed by our service charges at 31% or $381 million. This chart here depicts the FY25 ad valorem property tax by fund. As you all know, general fund is our primary ad valorem fund at $458 million or 80% of the ad valorem collected, followed by our unincorporated area general fund at $66 million or 11% of the total. And this chart here depicts the general fund ad valorem by category. As you can see, our health, safety, welfare is what the majority of our ad valorem is spent on at 58.3%. And this is our unincorporated general fund at $66 million in ad valorem. And there is health, safety, and welfare in this. It consists of our code enforcement, Ochapi Fire District, and Division of Forestry at 17%. And most of the money here goes to our parks and roads and stormwater at $47.2 million, which is discretionary. All right, from here I'm going to move on to a few economic indicators and some ad valorem history. This chart here depicts the CPI year over year from December 21 to December 2024. The current year CPI is 2.8%. That has dropped from last year's December to December CPI, which was 5.7%. Moving on here, this is the Florida Price Level Index. What this is an index that the school board uses as a basis for labor costs across the state. When you look at these numbers here, you can see that this is the most recent Florida Price Level Index from 2023, Collier County, for the second year in a row, ranked the highest of the 67 counties as it relates to labor costs. This chart here just depicts this in a map format. As you can see, South Florida in the dark green has the highest cost of labor in the state. This chart here depicts the historical changes in our taxable value. All the way back to 2006, you can see the dip in the recession. We've been, since 2013, gaining in taxable value. As you can see, from 23 to 25, we've had some pretty good years of taxable value increase. The 2026 number you see there is going to be our planning number. That's what we've wrapped our scenario around for budget policy. Property tax rate history. This is the general fund. As you all know, we carried on a 3.5645 rate for many, many years. Within the last 2 years, we did achieve rollback twice, bringing it down to 3.0107 in the general fund. Same is true for the unincorporated area general fund, just not quite as long of a timeline. In 17, that increased to 0.8069. The 2 years of rollback have brought that rate to 0.6844. And what does that mean? These two tables here show you the general fund and unincorporated area general fund taxpayer savings compared to the FY23 or FY22 rate, which was that original rate I was telling you about. So you can see here over the last 2 years, we've saved the taxpayers $134 million in general fund and $18.7 million in the unincorporated area general fund, for a total of $152 million. The table below depicts if we were to go millage neutral this year at that rate of 3.0107, we would, compared to the 2023 rate, we would be saving the taxpayers about $100 million across those two funds. Any questions on any of that?
Commissioner Hall?
Yes, Mr. Johnson. The savings at the bottom right there on the last screen.
Correct.
$100 million, is that a running total from 2023, 2024, or is that an additional $100 million?
That would be additional based on the difference between the rates in 2023 and the potential for the rate this year at millage neutral.
That's if we went millage neutral.
Correct. And that's with a 5% taxable value increase calculated in that. So that would shift depending on the actual taxable values that we receive from the property appraiser.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, now I'll briefly go over the priority-based budgeting approach that the board implemented last year that we'll be utilizing again this year. What is priority-based budgeting? Priority-based budgeting is a strategic approach to budgeting that aligns our financial resources with the strategic priorities of our organization. By connecting budget decisions to strategic goals and objectives, the county can achieve greater efficiency and effectiveness. This chart here kind of shows our flow for our implementation that we followed last year and we'll be following again this year. At our March 4th workshop, we'll be here to define our strategic goals and priorities. From there, we'll establish our prioritization criteria. Then staff will gather budget data through the budget process, and we'll align that budget with these priorities and allocate the budget based on those priorities. And next week as well, we'll have Resource X here for the workshop, and we'll be talking about some of the insights that we've implemented along with Mr. Fabian's year 2 approach to priority-based budgeting. Any questions on that?
I don't see anybody lit up. Commissioner McDaniel.
Hit my button too late. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you have the priority, our budget priorities listed anywhere in this presentation?
I do not in this presentation. We'll be bringing that back next week.
Okay. All right. Because I'd like to see those and make sure they're what I recall.
Perfect. We can do that.
Okay.
All right, in this slide, I know you all are familiar with. This is the Resource X budgeting lasagna, if you will. We're starting this year at the bottom again with our program inventory, and what we'll do is we'll have staff go through their program inventory, update it, From there, we add the line item data into it, which is the old way we did the budgets through line item allocations. We put it into programs. From there, we apply the attributes, the impact on the outcomes of our strategic plan to create budget proposals and move forward with you guys in June. Any questions on that? I know you've seen that probably 10 times in the last year. All right, now we'll move on to our budget policy discussion. Today I'm going to go over briefly employee compensation, health insurance rates, operating control lines, millage rates, and capital allocations, along with our reserve policy for a recommended reserve policy for FY26. All right, I'm going to start off here with our general fund and unincorporated area general fund operating control lines. Why do we establish budgeting control lines? It's a critical step in the preparation of priority-based budgeting. It establishes the total resources available for the departments. It allows the departments to prioritize and make their own trade-offs within their reign of control there. And it also provides accountability and transparency. What we're recommending this year, based on that initial 5% taxable value scenario, is a 3% operating control line. And what this means is that department operations for FY26, the operations that rely on the general fund and the unincorporated general fund for funding, will be restricted to a 3% increase for current program services and operating transfers that feed those funds. Any questions on that? All right. Capital allocations, we're recommending an additional $5 million allocation to the maintenance reserve. And the next slide will kind of be a brief history on our maintenance reserve. In addition, we're recommending a 5% adjustment to general and unincorporated general fund capital maintenance transfers. And this slide here depicts our countywide capital reserve since inception. As you can see, in 2023 to 24, there was a large reduction in our reserve due to Hurricane Ian. And then in 25, we also reduced the reserve to balance the capital maintenance side of the budget. So we currently sit in 25 at $7.6 million in this reserve. Based on the initial planning scenario, we would be looking to increase that reserve to at least $12.6 million. Employee compensation. Again, the slide earlier depicted the December CPI of 2.8%. And as you saw, the most recent Florida Price Level Index ranked Collier County at the highest of all 67 counties in the state. The pay plan recommendation for FY26 is a 3% adjustment, a COLA or general wage adjustment of 2.5%, and a pay plan maintenance allocation of 0.5%. From there, I'll move into health insurance. As everyone knows, our health insurance costs have been increasing. They're expected to increase again between 6% and 7% for this current year, FY25. The recommended reserves for health insurance are $25.3 million for FY26. This is to achieve 99% certainty within the fund, and I'll go over that here in a second. To achieve this, there's kind of two parts that we're recommending here. First off, a 9% adjustment to employer and employee contributions to the plan, and then a potential for a one-time fund level contribution to the plan to stabilize it based on FTE counts within the individual payer funds. Any questions on that before I go into the calculation of the reserves? I'll just show you guys a quick slide here too that kind of shows our trend in health insurance. The kind of, I guess, magenta color is our expenses. The darker purple is the revenues, and the green is our reserve level. So as you can see, our expenses are exceeding our revenues, and our reserves are decreasing. Hence the recommendation for an increase in the health insurance costs. And then this is what we're utilizing to calculate our recommended reserve. As you can see here, our minimum recommended reserve is $25.3 million. That includes the required minimum reserve, which is $18.7 million, which consists of two parts: our incurred but not reported claims, which this year totaled $9.5 million, and 60 days of claims, which totaled $9.2 million. In addition, to achieve 99% certainty, we recommend an additional amount to cover the cost variance. If you look at the chart, it's a Monte Carlo simulation, 10,000 trials to get this bell curve, if you will. The best estimated mean for next year is 52.2 million in claims. The 99th percentile, with certainty at the 99th percentile, is 58.8. The difference is 6.6 million, so we add that to the reserve to ensure that we are covered within 99% certainty. Any questions on that?
Commissioner Hall?
All right, when I see this bell curve, I'm thinking I've answered 35% of the answers right, but I got an A. So I know that you're real familiar with all of this and you're going through it fairly rapidly, but does the county need to incur to bring this up, or is that going to be a part of the increase the fees on the employees, or a combination of both?
Combination of both. So the 9% would be an employee-employer contribution, and if we did a fund level adjustment, that would be employer.
Employer.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and at the 9% rate, this chart here just shows the employee health plan increase. The center there is per month, the center section. It varies between $10.51 to $56.55 a month at the 9% rate, depending on the type of plan. All right, millage rate policy. Prioritize capital and operating maintenance budgets. Millage rate is going to be calculated with preliminary taxable value based on the budget requirements within those established control lines we set, which were 3% for operating and that 5% for capital maintenance transfers. New incremental general governmental capital and expanded operating budget proposals will include a funding source and required incremental millage. Those would be above and beyond what was put in the scenario. So any additional expanded requests and or requirements for additional maintenance or capital projects or reserve levels for that matter, if we're looking at that capital reserve. MSTU millages for FY26, it is recommended that the MSTUs be limited to a millage rate sufficient to cover the current budget, year operations, and any planned capital from those MSTUs. General governmental reserves. The general fund, the recommendation is to stick with our continuing policy of between 8 and 16% of operating revenues. That's between $50 and $100 million essentially. For FY25, the budgeted reserve is $77.6 million. The planning scenario has that reserve at $79.6, an increase of about $2 million. Unincorporated area general fund, the target is 8% or 1 month of expenses, or approximately $6.5 million. For 25, the budgeted reserve was $6.2 million. Any other general governmental funds that receive transfer revenue from the general fund or the unincorporated general fund will be sized at 1 month's revenue, or whenever we plan to send those transfers over to fund that fund, to get them through with the cash flow until that point. Enterprise fund reserves, the Collier County Water Sewer District user fee reserves are established minimally between 5 and 15% of revenues, with working capital resources between 45 and 90 days. That's a continuation of policies from years past. I see I have an extra period there. I apologize. Solid waste reserves will be set between the 45 and 90 days based on FY25 operating expenses, and we'll continue to reestablish the solid waste restricted reserve for disaster response, which was utilized during Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Milton. Targeted reserves within growth management, permit fund 1013 and planning fund 1014 will be set to 3 months and 9 months of total budget appropriations respectively. And with that, any questions on any of that before I go on to the next steps?
Commissioner McDaniel?
Just this one that I was bumping planning and zoning yesterday, and we want to make sure that we have, because we have multiple pieces of property that we already own that direly need to be rezoned. And I'm hearing that there are budgetary constraints in affecting that. So just make sure that we're touching the planning and the planning fund sufficiently so that we have the revenues to accomplish those needs.
All right, appreciate it.
I have a couple questions. First, for Ms. Patterson, in terms of the pay increase, what is the current status in terms of vacant positions? Will we still be competitive? What's that scenario looking like?
So we still are struggling to hire. Obviously, it's a very competitive market out there. Now, we never expect to compete against the private sector. That's just not realistic. But local governments continue to recruit our employees, so remaining competitive with them is important. The board did take several steps a couple of years ago to try to bring our pay plan current. So what we're doing is attempting to keep that current with these general wage adjustments or the COLAs that we're doing each year. We're at a loss for some of these positions, and there's no way we can buy our way out of them. So we just have things like project managers, engineers, things like that where we just aren't able to hire. But it appears that we're becoming a little bit more competitive when we're dealing with some of the general positions. Now we do analyze every vacant position when people leave through retirement or whatever their reasons are for the appropriateness of that position, to be sure that we have those jobs slated correctly, and that we're attempting to recruit the right people for the right jobs. We still are running the workforce prioritization pool, and that's that group of positions that had been vacant for a really long time that we hold back for strategic types of programs or whatever if there's a need. So to us, the pay plan, continuing on with the cost of living adjustments in this competitive environment is key for us to be able to recruit and retain staff.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we had some testimony some time back that if we were able to hire project managers, that would be far less expensive than contracting on individual projects. I think Commissioner Hall kind of led the lead in terms
Yes.
of figuring that out. So
That is true.
What's the status of that? Are we looking to do that?
Yes, we are continuing to. None of our project manager positions have gone to the workforce prioritization pool, and we continue to look at ways that we can recruit project managers, as well as attempting to have an internal mentoring process where we bring them up ourselves. Other areas where we have difficulties, it's nothing new. We have a national shortage of public safety. For the last several years, we've been working on getting EMS right-sized, and then over at DAS, continuing to aggressively pursue hiring an in-house veterinarian. Those services are always augmented by outsourced things, but we have increased the limit on what we're willing to pay, the maximum amount paid for a veterinarian in an attempt to recruit a veterinarian for DAS.
I only mention that just, I think it's important, obviously, to trim fat from the budget and to keep taxes as low as possible. But at the same time, we want to maintain a very high level of services in the community. And we want to be in a position, like with project managers, where we're actually spending money on employees but saving money in our contracts. So I know it's important to keep the numbers as low as possible, but as we go forward with this, I'd like some more analysis as to, are we doing something here in the guise of saving some money, but at the same time creating more expense for the county and less services?
Yes, sir, and there's a delicate balance. We have high expectations in this community, and obviously we have a lot of things going on, both with our growth capital as well as our capital maintenance. So those project managers are incredibly important. Also, the private sector has a lot of work, so the availability of even the being able to outsource any of that just because we're in need, it's very, very expensive, and they don't necessarily always have a lot of resources to give to us. So those are highly prioritized for recruitment. And we'll continue to look at different ways that we can do that.
I may have misunderstood this, but you went through several different issues dealing with reserves. And one of them was, I believe, was reserves for our general employment of 1% of 1 month. Did I misunderstand that?
That's general fund in general, 1 to 2 months, or 8 to 16%.
All right, so what does that cover?
That covers the cash flow needs for the general fund. As you know, we don't receive our ad valorem until.
Right, understood. That's why I'm asking the question. I thought you said it was 1 month of reserves, but now you're saying 1 to 2 months.
It's between 1 and 2. We're at about 1.5 currently. So we try to follow the guidance of 1 to 2 months, which is best practice.
Okay.
So
In your professional opinion, the number for reserves you have for that is sufficient?
Yes, I believe what we have planned is sufficient.
And the reserves, I think the number was 12.6 million, down from about 25 million. What reserve fund was that for?
That's in the countywide capital fund. That was, if you recall, that was the reserve we utilized to address the needs after Hurricane Ian. And last year we utilized that to continue with capital maintenance and projects, even with the reduced.
So we would be down to 12.6 million. When Hurricane Irma came through, do you recall just kind of generally how much reserves we had to tap into?
Irma or Ian?
Well, Irma was the first one, but Ian as well.
If you recall, I don't have that number offhand for Irma, but in Irma, what we did, we didn't have that reserve, so we ended up tapping into actual capital projects and reducing our capital plan. So that's the purpose of that reserve, is to avoid having to do that.
With Ian, how much did we have to tap into?
We tapped into that $13.3 million that year. Now, we utilized for budget flow purposes around 30 right away, but as we received money from FEMA, we were able to back off that amount to keep that reserve at about 22 million.
You're comfortable. You're comfortable with the 12.6 million.
I believe that should be a higher number. Again, once we get taxable value, we can look at that and provide proposals for that.
Which should that number be?
I mean, honestly, around we do have other options now with a few other areas of reserves, but if we could be putting in 7.5 million a year plus, that would be something that I think would be beneficial to us. Okay, we had started with 5 a year. That was the initial plug. And it depends on the circumstances with hurricanes.
I'm still trying to get my arms around the number. So we're going to have reserves with this proposal of about 12.6 million. And the question was whether that's sufficient. I think you said that you'd like to have more. Then you mentioned 7 million, so you confused.
Oh, I'm sorry. An additional amount of 7.5 million per year. Currently, we're adding 5 million a year.
Okay, so you feel it should be around 20. We're going to add 5 each year.
Around 15 to 20 million dollars.
Okay.
For next year.
Commissioner Hall made a good suggestion, that is that we not have any hurricanes for a while.
I would second that if I had a vote.
I will tell you, a long time ago, the Florida legislature, and this is back after the state had numerous hurricanes. I think we were into the Greek alphabet on hurricanes and tropical storms. The legislature passed a resolution declaring that we would not have any more hurricanes, and I think for 5 years or so we had no hurricanes. So we want to talk to Kathleen Pasadomo about that. Commissioner McDaniel?
Yes, and thank you for bringing this up, Mr. Chair. You know, when you and I first came into office, this account didn't even exist. Up until that point, our methodology for any kind of a natural disaster cleanup was to belay necessary, oftentimes life-sustaining capital projects.
Because I think the 2017 hurricane,
right,
we're dealing with the 2016 budget. We weren't on the board at that time.
You are absolutely correct, and I had long conversations with our senior staff and ultimately got this account established. Our entire facilities department that had been managed internally had never had any kind of actuarials done. We were, at the time, I thought we were a little bit over $1 billion in assets, and then necessarily found out that we were just shy of $2 billion in assets, and never had applied any kind of an actuarial. And so what I would like to see next week is what that actual number needs to be, coming from our revenue sources to put into this capital reserve. It's if my recollections are correct, it's it's something north of 20 million a year needs to be put into this to be able to maintain and ultimately replace our capital assets when they reach their useful life expiration. So I'd like to, a little bit more definite, because back when we hired Mark to be our county manager, we were in the final stages of the data entry and doing those actuarials. So, and I recall a number being thrown around of between 20 and 24 million a year needed to be put in here to ensure that we had necessary maintenance reserves along with capital replacement when useful life actually was attained.
And we can put that together. We had a model last year. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'll take a look at that and bring it to you next week.
Yeah, please. Just for a discussion point, this is a highly discretionary fund that we can have available for future needs and future uses as we go along, especially when these short-term, relatively speaking, short-term, and we can do, Mr. Chair, we can do a resolution about waiving on the hurricanes in the upcoming seasons. I'd be happy to do that. But it's imperative that we account for the capital assets that the county owns and that we have numbers associated with the useful life of those capital assets, so we have the necessary repairs and maintenance ultimately and the replacement capital that's requisite. My second, I do have two points. You brought this one up, but the second one it goes back into the compensation side. We also rewrote job descriptions circa that same time frame to be able to initiate a merit pay program, especially with our and it would work well with our project managers. Have we moved in that regard at all?
So we are still having some difficulties with the merit program. There are a lot of hurdles on how to equitably administer that merit program, so we're continuing to look at it. And it's not something that we're the only ones that struggle with. We've had similar conversations with the sheriff's office, unfortunately. That's just sort of the world we live in today. So looking at different options on how we might be able to re-implement a merit program and ensure that it can be administered fairly.
And I understand, Ms. Patterson, that you can't operate government like you do the private sector. But certainly we could have a review of our contractual hiring agreements that we have with people, especially in the project manager side of things. When projects are brought in on time and under budget, bonuses can in fact be paid to incentivize our project managers to pay a little closer attention to the line items and the circumstances that are prevalent along those lines. Number two, the other side of that equation, and I use this example regularly, we have an enormous fleet of very, very bright people that we do have employed now. And when someone comes to us with a nice idea that can save the taxpayers money, compensation should be offered to be able to effectuate those savings. You know, Commissioner LaCastro has spoken regularly about this isn't our money, this is a taxpayer's money, and it's a benefit to all if savings can be effectuated. So I'd like to see that merit pay. I'd like to know what the obstacles are, and then I'd like to have a discussion on what we can do to overcome those obstacles to be able to initiate that.
Yes, sir. If it's okay with you, I'll talk with our HR folks and we'll get on your calendar so we can chat about some of those difficulties.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, within the last 5 years, I think we had 3 weather events that affected our area. One pretty bad, the other 2 not so much. But is there still any outstanding monies owed to the county through any of the other agencies, the federal?
Yeah, we're still working through all of those storms. Ian, Helene, Milton. I believe there was another one that started with an I. Idalia. So that's work in progress, in process, I should say. As we get contracts going, I know Caxambus is a recent one that we've started working on. We have to incur the expense before we can be repaid. So these things take 5 to 7 years sometimes before you see the money back. But yes, there is potential FEMA reimbursement coming our way.
Because I know you had mentioned after Ian, you know, we dipped into our reserve funds.
Yes.
We used initially almost $30 million.
Yep.
But you said at some point it came down to equate about 13, 14 after.
For that year, and we were able to take advantage of a new process FEMA had where they allowed upfront payment for debris. So we ended up, I believe it was, don't quote me, but I believe it was around $23 million upfront from FEMA ahead of us incurring the expenses, which helped out with that.
Where I'm going with these questions is there a magic number? I believe, right, we have to acquire so much damages before we qualify for some of those things up front?
And there is, I don't know it offhand.
So we're almost worse off having a bunch of bad little storms than having one big catastrophic one, because then it comes out of our reserve fund.
That
we
is
don't
correct.
Get refunds.
And the number isn't too substantial. But yeah, those little ones are.
But I remember just Debbie itself, just, you know, in the low-lying areas, we had.
And I don't believe that one qualified.
It didn't, right?
FEMA,
and we had to spend that out of our own pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Some just food for thought for us people up there.
I appreciate it.
Commissioner McDaniel, you had something else?
That goes back to the capital reserve that we were discussing earlier. When we've got those reserves in place, the actuarial that's applied to our capital assets allows you've got 50-year useful life and a 20-year roof and 10-year windows and 2-year paint and 1-year parking lot, and you're supposed to put away a certain amount of money every year so that you've got the capacity to maintain those assets and then ultimately have the capital to replace the asset when the useful life is expired. But when you have 20 and 50-year money that's sitting in this particular reserve, that allows for discretionary spending on short-term items, especially if we don't reach qualifications with the different agencies that do reimburse us. We've got the money to be able to take care of our citizenry at the same time. So that reserve account is imperative for our longevity and maintaining the reserves that we require to protect our citizens.
Any other questions before I move on?
I don't see anybody lit up here, so.
All right.
None.
I'll just quickly go over our next steps then. As I stated before, on March 4th, we'll have our strategic plan and priority-based budget workshop with ResourceX. We'll bring back some of this stuff that you guys have requested. And then on March 11th, we'll bring budget policy to the board for approval. And from there, staff will start putting together their budgets.
All right. Do we have any registered speakers? All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm sorry. We do have two lights lit up here. Commissioner Castro.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted right to the end. I just have two things. For Ms. Patterson, are we still under any type of hiring freezes across any divisions, departments, offices? So everything that we're advertising out on the street, we're actively pursuing. Because I know there's some other government agencies across the county that are experiencing certain areas where they are sort of freezing, maybe the sheriff and maybe a couple of other places. But as far as us in this building, everything is wide open.
The only thing that we have is the workforce prioritization pool, which is a group of positions that were open for and vacant for a very long time that were picked up and put into a prioritized pool for use to be deployed out under different circumstances. But as far as the rest of the open positions, and as well as people who leave, the only thing that we are doing is making sure that we ask the questions when somebody's vacated a position. Is this the position that you need? And we evaluate it that way, but there's no hiring freeze as far as our ongoing vacancies.
Okay. And then, second for you, Chris, this is just more of a comment, but a year or so ago, maybe a little longer, and I think I'm speaking for all the commissioners here, we charged you and the group that you're here representing to start putting some meat on the bone for us. I remember when I was first elected, and it's no slam on the process, but sometimes we got a lot of cartoon drawings up here. We're smart enough to see spreadsheets and see numbers, and I've just been very impressed over the last year with the deep dive that we're getting, not only at these meetings, but then that we'll get next Tuesday. And that was always our direction. You know, we want to be part of this process, just not being told what's being done. And you can already see the fruits of our labor all working together with a lot more detail and a lot more knowledge for the numbers. And so I really commend you for that. You know, when you've had one-on-ones with us, I'm sure like I said, I'm speaking for all the commissioners. I've always been really impressed that I'm not just getting 3 PowerPoint slides that are, you know, in 5 different colors with a graph and a chart, but it's actually, you know, spreadsheets and numbers, and we can really talk about the details. And so I really look forward to next Tuesday's meeting as well to continue to do a deep dive, because obviously, you know, $2 billion sounds like a lot, but it goes fast. You know, it goes fast. So, and then, you know, and I'll make one comment about Caxambas. Nobody wants hurricanes, but like Commissioner Cole said, a bunch of these little storms can really, bankrupt us in a way, as far as repairs and things. You know, when Ian hit Caxambas as hard as it did, I don't want to ever say it did us a favor, but it did exactly what you said. It put us over that threshold, and it really allowed us to attack it aggressively with many repairs and things that were needed over many years that just sort of were difficult to make the cut. But I also know it's hard to chase those dollars, and you and others in this room, and I've got some in the back, Jamie French, Trinity, Jamie Cook, all these people that work really hard to secure grants and work with FEMA and put all this together. I know it's a lot of heavy lifting, so really commend you for the improvement and the how we've increased the airspeed for us up here in this budget process. So thank you very much. It's noticed and appreciated.
I appreciate the kind words. It takes a village for sure.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, and so just to repeat for my brain, we're going to basically adopt or recommend a budget at rollback with the 3% allowable year-over-year increases?
Not at rollback. The budget is at a 5% TV increase, taxable value increase is what we put into the plan. And then from there, any additional items above that 5%, which is those control lines that we set, would be incremental millage that we would present in June.
Commissioner Hall.
Wait, that's not a satisfactory answer. And forgive me, it's not what I understood you to say. It was my understanding that we were producing the expense budget at rollback with a 3% increase year-over-year expenditure allowance.
At the moment, I don't have taxable value, so I mean, 5% is right around where we expect that net new taxable value to be, between usually 3.5% and 4.5%. This year, I'm expecting it to be a little bit higher. That would then create rollback in that situation at that 4.5%.
What does the taxable value have to do with last year's expenses with what they were? That's my question to you.
What does the taxable value have to do with last year's expenses?
Correct. That determines the ultimate revenue that we're going to receive when the tax bills come out. But the proposition of this year's expenses over last year's expenses, we know what they are.
Yep. So we took the 3% based on the CPI, and then that 5% is the 5% for capital is a little bit of an increment to attack our deferred maintenance. And once we receive the taxable value, we'll be able to determine what that net new taxable value is, which could indeed be the 5% in our planning scenario. When I put together a planning scenario, I put it together very conservative. The state was in July was looking at a 12.3% taxable value increase potentially this year. They don't give us what that increment is, which is how you calculate the rollback rate.
I understand that. But it would be my want, it would be my preference that we utilize last year's expenses with the allowable year-over-year increases, and then the increment above that amount is whatever it is once those taxable values in fact come back to us.
Okay, and I think we're essentially saying the same thing, because that's what we've heard.
Okay, well, so you're 8 over what we were last year.
No, the 3% is just for the operations portion. The 5% is just associated with the capital portion. So theoretically, it's a mix between the two. So you have 4%. Now that's real simple math, because one bucket's bigger than the other. But
funny math in public.
Yeah, that's good math. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, we'll talk about it more in depth next week. We don't need to belabor the point right now.
We can do that.
Just-
Happy to put that on paper for you.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the discussion. This is the third time that I've been through this, and this is the first time that I don't feel like I'm being told or sold. I feel like you get the process. I'm looking forward to Mr. Fabian getting here. I want to see the real fruit of him. I mean, the pool is great. The ideas that we had to charge fees and the first little thing that he had, that was great, but I'm anxious to see the real meat of where we can streamline this government machine. That way we don't have to focus on revenue. We can include it. And as far as County Manager, as far as the merit pay thing, you said two words together and they're not congruent. You said merit and equitable, and they're not. You don't have to be equitable with merit. I think a message to our employees that says, listen, if you come up with a great idea that's going to save this taxpayer's money, we're going to compensate you for it in some way. You don't have to define it. I don't know what the legalities are with human resources, but if that message goes out and everyone receives that message, then no one can have sour grapes if somebody next to them came up with a great idea and they got compensated for it and they didn't. Nobody should have sour grapes. Everybody should understand. So I just wanted to bring that up and encourage you with that, because I think the people that are doing the job know best. They know where things are wasteful, and they know where things can be changed. And sometimes we sitting up here, we don't have it. We don't have our finger on that pulse, but they do. So I just want to encourage you with that.
All right. Seeing no other lights lit up, let's move on to the next item. We have a few people here from the city of Naples. Perhaps we can take care of that before we take a break.
Yes, sir. Item 11B is a recommendation to approve an interlocal agreement with the City of Naples for the use of Bayview Park to remove debris as part of the Naples Pier renovation. Mr. John Dunick, your Executive Director of Facilities and Redevelopment, is here to present.
No, it should be under 11B. There you go. Perfect. Good morning. I've got a brief presentation, and we have the city staff here available to answer any questions. Just by a little history lesson, that we sometimes forget is the Bayview Park was actually donated to the county by the city. So this is actually a partnership that goes back in time to the beginning of the park itself. Today is a recommendation to approve an interlocal agreement with the City of Naples for the use of Bayview Park to remove debris as part of the Naples Pier renovation. Just by way of timeline, and this is a city's timeline, in September of 2022, Hurricane Ian severely damaged the pier. I think we're all aware of that. The city in April 2023 awarded a design contract to THA Consulting and MHK Architecture to produce redesigns for the new improved pier. In October of 2024, the construction contract to Shoreline Foundation was awarded. The construction schedule begins with when they finally get the permits from the Army Corps of Engineers, which are in their final stages of doing as we speak right now. The overall construction is estimated approximately 18 months from beginning to end. The request you have before you is for the debris removal and the demolition portion of the project. There was a lot of damage that went into the water, and it actually is still on the pier itself, that they have to remove in order to continue the project. Bayview Park is the closest location to the actual staging area for the removal of the project. And so the kind of contract outline is the contractor will remove the pier debris, they'll place it on a barge, they'll take it to Bayview Park, and then remove it and take it to the landfill. The debris will not be stored at the park location. It will be sorted there at the park location, but it'll be immediately removed from the park each time that the barge is in place. Use of Bayview Park was only required for demolition, so there is no staging area, as I mentioned, and it is the closest location. They were asked during the CRA meeting, what about Naples Landing? It's a period, it's a location that you already own. Unfortunately, the barge, with the size of the barge and the needs and the distance, it would raise the cost, plus the barge actually would not fit in the Naples Landing area to actually remove the material. And so They came to us for Bayview Park as a request to utilize, and I'll walk you through it, to utilize 8 spaces. I mentioned in the executive summary 7. I actually went out and physically counted. It's actually 8 spaces in totality out there. Operations Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., no weekends or holidays, unless authorized by the county manager, because there could be a situation where a storm's coming and they may say, hey, can we get in and do a Saturday or something along those lines? We wanted to leave that flexibility. The dock will be available when the barge is not docked. So from the standpoint of when you look at the aerial picture, and I have kind of depicted in green and red separate areas, the green is areas where they're going to want to fence it in and keep it enclosed during the period of the project. The red is the actual dock area that is utilized by boaters on a day-to-day basis to stage on and off the ramp. So when the barge isn't there, the red will be available for the boaters itself. The maximum will be 2 days a week that the barge will be there, so that won't be there the full 5 days. It'll be a hit or miss as they load up the barge. Obviously, they want to bring it and remove it and take it back to the pier to keep the project moving. I think their target obviously would get as much done before hurricane season as possible, assuming they're going to get the permits in the next month or so. We ask that the Naples Police provide security if we ask for that. Because as you know, boaters, when they're having to wait to stage on and off a ramp, sometimes it can get a little congested and there can be issues. And so we ask that the city participate in having their boat police there and on site to help us along the way. And then operations, we monitor it just as necessary. And this is an important part of the discussion because, these are fluid situations. We recognize we just opened Caxambas. We just closed 951 boat ramp. We don't know what the full boat traffic impacts are going to be with 951 closure. I can tell you as the CRA director that we typically don't have overflow parking onto Hamilton Avenue unless it's a major holiday weekend or it just happens to be one of those super weekends where everybody's out on their boat enjoying themselves. So during the weekdays, we very rarely have actually people using the 34 spaces we have on Hamilton Avenue. Community impacts. One of the things we wanted to do to ensure that we addressed all issues, we actually took this to the CRA Advisory Board because Danford Street, we've had a lot of challenges with Danford Street and the residents there about, frankly, the activities in Bayview Park, impacts with stormwater, the road, and all kinds of other issues. And so we presented this project with the city to the CRA Advisory Board. They voted 7-0 in support of actually moving forward with the projects. They thought 4 to 6 months was reasonable in terms of use of the park. However, there were some side conversations that occurred. One was make sure you monitor the park before and after to make sure if there's any damages that we've done that, that we actually have a before and after scenario that if something were to damage the area, we would actually have the documentation. So I'm working with the facility staff and we'll make sure that happens. They wanted to bring back a sidewalk option to the Bayshore Gateway Triangle area as part of the planned Danford Street maintenance project. We had presented a sidewalk option on Danford Street several years ago, and the citizens couldn't agree to which side of the road the sidewalk would actually go on. So it ended up not moving forward as part of the Hamilton Avenue project when we did the road because it stalled because the citizens couldn't reach consensus. They've asked us to revisit that issue, and as a CRA, we're happy to do so. And then address any unauthorized commercial activity in the park. This has been an ongoing issue in Bayview Park, and one that I'm super frankly happy that we've got Tom and Jamie French kind of leading Parks and Recreation from the standpoint of enforcement, because we haven't had a lot of enforcement in Bayview Park, and there's a lot of issues there. And they've been out there and they've been enforcing in the past several weeks, and we're starting to see some improvements in terms of the unauthorized commercial activity in the park. And then one of the things I want to point out, it came up in the discussion the other day, was, well, how long is the distance from where we have actually built the overflow 34 spaces along Hamilton to actually walk to the park? And I measured it out, it's 0.6 miles in total. And what we typically do on any given weekend when they park out there is they walk, or a friend shuttles them back and forth, things along those lines. But the total distance of the park location from what we built as the overflow parking for Hamilton is a little over a half mile. With that, I've got Bob Middleton, with Public Works Director, Kevin Land with Shoreline, Dan Orenstein, and Bruce Selfon, and Todd Terrell from Terrell & Associates, all here to answer any questions you may have on behalf of the city.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, just one quick question, and that was, what are the plans for the construction of the pier itself? The utilization for the demolition is a 4 to 6 month period. How are they going to tote the materials they need to rebuild the?
They're going to store it. They can answer the detail of it, but their plan is to store at the foot of the pier itself on land, and then they'll build the pier as they go out.
I got you. Okay, that was my only, and the only other statement that I had is this ongoing monitoring that we're alleging that we're in fact going to do. It's imperative that we do that. That ramp gets used a lot, especially with the closure of 951. It's going to even get used more.
Trust me, I have a lot of volunteer monitors on Danford Street.
Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we've talked, John, and I've actually talked to Mr. Middleton, in reference to this project. This is in my district. I was being told it was 7 spots. Now, I believe you said you confirmed it's 8. And 2 of those are handicap, which were the only 2 handicap boat size or trailer size parking spots in that area. So, and I've thrown this out, and I don't know if it's that much of an ask, but at minimum, I know during the week we haven't seen utilization of all the spots being used, but kind of the handicapper a game changer to the fact that on the weekends when we do have an excessive amount of people using that park to launch boats, I've recommended that if I don't believe it's that much of a reach, but maybe then provide some sort of shuttle service instead of having, especially a handicapped person, got to park their boat 3/4 of a mile away from where they just launched it or parked their trailer. So, I don't know if it's a possible that could be a possible ask for them to provide that service. At least we'll gauge it, see if it's necessary through the whole time. And I guess the second question is, you mentioned you showed the red area on your little map on there, reference to sometimes people stage your boat to the north side of the launch. That doesn't necessarily mean when the barge is there, they're not going to be able to still launch and go to the south and stage along that pier area.
Correct.
Okay.
They'll be able to use the south.
I don't want to make it sound like those 2 days out of the week there's no launching.
No.
Okay, so
the south will be accessible the whole time.
Okay.
And with respect to the handicap accessibility, we will move those to appropriate slips near the ramp. Brian and I have had conversations in facilities about whether we actually need to put an impervious asphalt down in the short term, or whether we can still meet the code short term with the hard gravel that we currently have in terms of dealing with that. So we're looking to cite that, and I think the city has agreed that they will pay for that in a temporary basis because it's not going to be a lot of cost, but we will relocate the handicap accessible. And one of the other things was a law enforcement, of those 8, one's a law enforcement dedicated spot as well for launching. We will relocate that as well nearby. So we kind of have a plan in place for all of it, but, to the point of the shuttle service discussion, I think we agree it's a wait and see thing, but I think they're agreeable to do it when we need to do it, but I'll have them come up and confirm that. I think it's just a matter of monitoring and not putting out there for days that there's going to be no activity.
Because as well as I know, there's been some entrepreneurs in the neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Charge people $5 to give them a ride back or give them a ride down to the park, and to me that's. That's taxpayers' dollars pay for that park. Nobody should have to pay somebody to drive them down to the park.
Yep.
It's capitalism.
Well, it may be, but it's confusing. Sometimes people think, I got to pay this $5 to get a ride on a golf cart. So.
Good point. Commissioner LaCastro.
Thank you, sir. I realize every project's different, but just wanted to make this one note. I had something similar in District 1 where we used the base of the Jolly Bridge as sort of like a lay-down area, and then, of course, the barge was going to come and pick up debris that area is being used for from construction sites of things that were being torn down. So it's sort of a similar situation. It sounds like this is well coordinated, but, I'll just make this one notation. Big problem that we had in my district was, the debris would be dropped off in the barge that was supposed to, come the next day, and many times didn't. And so, you have people that are staring at that garbage for, weeks and whatnot. So, just my only suggestion is, the barge people and the debris drop-off people are usually 2 totally different companies, or at least it was in my division, or in my district. that was the thing we had to tighten. And then when we did, it was, don't drop off the debris unless the barge is on the way where it's already there. And especially in this highly concentrated area, these are our citizens, staring at all that junk, waiting for the barge to show up. So that coordination is critical, as you well know. We didn't get it right in my district years ago, and then, we worked hard to really fix that. So.
All right, we do have some representatives of the city here. I don't know if we need to ask them any questions. Any desire to speak to those folks? Any registered speakers other than representatives from the city? All right, then we need a motion on the interlocal agreement.
Chairman, should we make sure that language is in there? If we monitor this and it becomes an issue, that we will visit the idea of a possible shuttle being provided to get people to and from the parking
We can
spot.
certainly add that language. We have general language that talks about monitoring and revisiting the issues together as a group.
Why don't you
But if we get somebody on the record, maybe from the city to agree that they will, provide the shuttle service if we deem necessary.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and clarify that point? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Bob Middleton, Public Works Director. Part of the agreement is that, we will work together on this. Specifically, the language is the city manager and county manager. We know this is going to be a fluid thing. Things will change. What I wanted to point out is there's probably going to be, depending on when the project starts, there'll be several holidays that are affected there. We want to try to determine what that demand is going to be during specifically those holidays. And there may be steps that we have to take. I don't want to sit here and tell you what we're going to do right now, but there's probably some options that we have open. We may demobilize the area for a certain holiday. Don't want to do that because that just adds cost to the project. But the language changes that we just discussed, I don't think there's a problem with putting it in there. I just don't want to put anything in there specifically to any things that we may do at this time. I'd rather us determine that as they're required.
Let me suggest that you put some clarification language in there that there may be changes such as the requirement for a shuttle. I'd also ask that you have periodic reports back to the commission.
Absolutely.
Maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks. I know this is a 4 to 6 month project, but keep us informed, and if there are issues, then we'll deal with them.
Be happy to do so.
Right. Anything else from the board? Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I do realize that this is a feel-good partnership with us in the city, and it's something that's going to be necessary. It's also taxpayers' money for those slips and those spots that were taken up. So I think the overall good, in my mind, is worth it. As far as the debris, there's always room at the rock crusher plant, and out that it's cleaned up, that you
It's a little far away.
Open it.
But no, I will,
Landfill.
if there's no other further discussion, I'll make a motion to pass the interlocal agreement.
Hey, can I just clarify something? Because I know Commissioner LaCosta brought up a good point, but it's kind of the opposite of what we're doing here. Our debris is coming in on the barge, so no debris will be on the land because it doesn't exist until the barge gets there. So the debris comes off the barge and gets loaded right on the trucks from
So
that.
you got to have the trucks imminent.
Yeah, so
Hey,
that
yeah.
which more than likely, the trucks are probably a different contract, but that I'm sure will.
I'll speak for the contractor. He has coordination with not only the barge, but for the trucks that are there that will haul the material off. They have to be there at the same time because we can't store material there. He doesn't want to handle that material twice. In other words, take it off the barge, set it on the ground, pick it up, or do extra work for it. So it's got to happen all at the same time. And
Yeah, I
think
just
the
wanted
contractors will do that.
clarification for the citizens out there listening that that's what we talked about and how it's going to operate, so they don't get the idea we're storing anything on them spots there. So, all right. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. Why don't we come back at 11 o'clock? We'll take a little bit of a break here, and we'll finish it pretty quickly. So we'll in recess until 11.
Hey, you have a big backyard.
Chair, you have the live mic.
Thank you. We will reconvene the meeting. I believe we're on item 11B, if I'm not mistaken.
You're at item 11C.
I mean C, sorry.
That is formerly 16D7, is a recommendation to approve and authorize the chairman to sign agreement LHTF 25-01 with Housing Development Corporation of Southwest Florida, Inc., doing business as HELP, in the amount of $50,000 to operate and administer the Collier County Community Land Trust. Ms. Christy Sontag, your Director of Housing and Human Services, Community and Human Services. I can't ever get that right. Sorry, Christy. Is here to present or answer questions. This item was moved at Commissioner McDaniel's request.
Commissioner McDaniel, do you have any specific questions you want to be addressed, or do you want a presentation?
Well, I have questions. That's the reason I pulled the agenda item, but how do you wish to?
Well, why don't you give us a brief presentation, and then we'll get into Commissioner McDaniel's questions.
Sure. For the record, Christy Sontag, Community and Human Services Director. The item before you today is the agreement with the Collier County Community Land Trust to perform affordable housing-related activities to foster the development of affordable housing in the amount of $50,000. So the land trust originated from the 2017 Urban Land Institute study that was completed. In 2018, in April of 2018, the board established a local housing fund, and then in 2019, the board approved the policy and the work scope, et cetera, for that housing fund. In addition, on that same day, RFP 19557 was approved in the amount of $100,000 to award to HELP for the Collier County Community Land Trust. So, a community land trust is a not-for-profit organization that has its own board, and the goals of the land trust are for long-term housing affordability and to create permanent affordable rental and home ownership for low to moderate income persons. The Collier County Community Land Trust was certified in 2021 by the Land Trust Institute, which is backed by Freddie Mac. So how did we get here? Several years ago, there was a competitive solicitation by Community and Human Services at which the Land Trust applied for funding. The Review and Ranking Committee approved the application conditionally, and the agreement over the last several years was worked on, developed, and where we're at now is there are 5 activities associated with this agreement. They include to prepare a plan to address commercial and mixed-use developments, submit grant and tax credit applications to support the construction of affordable housing, submit grant applications on behalf of the Community Land Trust to support their own operating costs. They are to provide quarterly and yearly financial statements, as well as conduct outreach events, and they are to engage in the development of 1 new affordable housing development. And with that, the recommendation is to approve the agreement for $50,000. And Mr. Puhala from the Land Trust is here, and I'll take any questions.
All right. You want to hear from the Land Trust before we get into questions?
It's up to you. However you wish to proceed, sir.
Well, why don't we have you come on up and tell us a little bit real quickly about the Land Trust and how this will work.
Absolutely. Well, for the record, Michael Puhala, serve as the Executive Director of both HELP, which is a HUD-approved counseling agency, and the Collier County Community Land Trust. We have a management agreement that HELP manages, so I provide that service to both organizations. And so we have the flexibility and some operational efficiencies because it is 2 affiliated organizations, although they're managed separately, with separate boards of directors. But that allows us to pivot, and so obviously from 2022 to now, we've had a lot of focus in on helping with other programs related to COVID with Hurricane Ian. So now we're in a position, we're working on a couple of joint venture partnerships that I think will dovetail very well with this operating support to move forward and help to bring physical development of housing that is affordable. And it's kind of, one of which is very exciting, is a build to rent to own, which is a hybrid rental that evolves into home ownership. That partnership is about to be materialized and move forward. So excited to answer any questions you might have, and appreciate any support.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes. Well, with all due respect to the organization, I'm not pleased with this grant. This is a private, not-for-profit organization that theoretically intercedes between the government, between the county, and affording affordable housing developers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will you go back to the slide that shows that one? We already do all of these things at the county. We assist developers for submission of grants. When I read the executive summary, everything that was being provided by this private, not-for-profit organization is already being performed by our county staff, by our and state staff with regard to housing affordability. And I didn't see a rationale for this grant to be bequeathed. So my question, my two questions that I have for you is, number one, is this grant request time sensitive? Does it have to be approved today?
Absolutely not.
Okay, number one. Number two, I would then like to move that it's continued and we tighten up the language within this agreement so that it's not as global with specifics. And we don't need to belabor the point today, since if it's the will of the board to continue this item. I would like to know. I have an issue with the name of this organization in the first place. This organization was named after Collier County as a land trust, and it's not a Collier County organization. This is an NGO. Mm-hmm. And so I would like a list of the submission of the grant proposals that they have secured. I would like a list of the projects and operations that they're actually working with and effectuating. Have they provided the quarterly reports and the financial statements that are requisite for them to even be participatory in this? And I'd like to see those things before this goes forward, if it goes forward. So if it meets with your pleasure, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to continue the item.
Ms. Sontag, how much time do you think you would need to meet with Commissioner McDaniel and get the information or make the changes that he's suggesting? Do you need, is the first meeting in March enough time, or do we need to go to the second meeting in March?
No, I could meet with him before then, sir. No problem.
Want to make sure that you're not, you have plenty of time.
Oh, yeah, I do, absolutely. I would just need to get some information from Mr. Puhala on the list of activities he's done, but the financials, I already have those in-house, and the list of grants that he's received, some I know, but I would have to get the rest from him, so.
Commissioner McDaniel, first meeting in March?
It's irrelevant to me when it comes back. I just want that documentation. And I also would like to see, if it's not already in the actual agreement with regard to the grant, specifics that can be tracked with regard to the expense. I don't want it just dumped into the operating account for this NGO and then not having trackable measurables and milestones.
Yes, sir. The 5 activities up there do have fees associated with those activities. So if Mr. Puhala and the Land Trust didn't deliver a plan on commercial mixed-use development, we wouldn't pay them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So-
why don't we go ahead and continue this to the next meeting, if that's acceptable.
That's fine.
need a
Do you
motion
want
and
to
a second.
specify? Do you want to specify the next meeting, or just continue it until we're ready to bring it back? I mean, there's no time constraint on this grant application, so I'm okay. Because if I've been, contrary to the dumb look on my face, we've had a couple of really light meetings, board meetings, county commission meetings, and I have a sneaking suspicion that things are piling up over here.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I thought that we'd go ahead and take care of this, but we'll continue to whenever you want it to
Well,
continue.
it's irrelevant when it comes back. If next meeting's fine, that's fine. I don't care, or the following. It's,
Okay.
we'll discontinue the item until we have that ready.
Absolutely.
We have a motion to continue this generally. Do we have a second? We have Commissioner Hall is seconding the motion.
I was
You'll-
lit up, but it's all right.
And if the motion passes, you'll bring it back when you're ready to bring it back.
Yes.
Commissioner Colwell, do you have a comment?
I just want the record. I don't really have an issue with the name of the organization. I mean, we've got several organizations here in Collier County that use Collier that are non-government organizations. I mean, Collier is just basically the founding family of this county that, you know, that brought this place forward. So you're not calling yourself Collier County Community Land Trust. So, I mean, I just want to go on record. I don't think that's too much of an issue that's going to break or make me on this subject. But, yeah, I look forward to maybe getting a little deeper dive and then just get back to the next meeting. So.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this, and you'll bring it back when you're ready, which could be the next meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 15A, public comments on general topics not on the current or future agenda by individuals not already heard during previous public comments in this meeting.
We have no one registered to speak at this time.
All right, very good. You guys coming up?
Did Vanessa, the Arrow?
Yeah, mass person.
No,
Oh, yeah.
so we'll reschedule her for another meeting. Item 15B, staff project updates. This may be a good time to invite our Parks and Rec folks up to give an update on Sun and Fun.
Oh, sorry, no, it's all good. I just wanted to introduce the team involved. Unfortunately, many of them can't be there. For the record, I'm Jamie French, the department head for Growth Management and Community Development. This group was Parks and Recreation, was reassigned to the already established Growth Management Community Development, so now we're Growth Management and Community Development, on around the 1st of October. As such, one of our early on directives was to get this water park assessed and reevaluated. So we've looked a little beyond just the water park, but we've looked at the entire North Collier Regional Park facility to include our softball, our soccer complexes, our food commissaries, the expo hall, as well as the associated kitchens that are there, and of course, Sun and Fun. We've worked in collaboration with our partners at Facilities Management. Brian Deloney, as I said the last week, has been a tremendous addition to lead that group with Facilities Management, and just a long-term friend and really a great colleague to work with, he and his team. Along with that, we've utilized a lot of our resources that we already had established within Growth Management. John Benoit, David Marino, Evelyn Tremino, all that are there at the park right now, probably working. But we just wanted to bring you an update. So I think Mr. Hanrahan's going to kick us off. He is your interim Parks and Recreation Director. I apologize, Rob Stoneburner seems to be calling me, so I'm going to take his call and let these folks get back at it. Your tax collector seems to find it funny every time I'm at this podium, so he calls me. So thank you, Rob. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. James Hanrahan, Interim Division Director for Parks and Recreation. We'll be going over the update for Sun and Fun. Jamie Cook, as well as Brian Deloney, will be assisting with this presentation as well. This has been a truly collaborative effort between many divisions. I want to thank, as Jamie mentioned, Growth Management, but specifically Parks and Rec, Development Review, Building Plan Review, Operations Regulatory Management, the Finance Team, Public Utilities, which included water, wastewater, solid waste, transportation, specifically road maintenance, facility management, and OMB. It has truly been a collaborative effort between all the divisions and departments within the county. As he mentioned before, he took a couple of names. I was going to thank just the boots on the ground, John Benoit, James Williams, and Eric Short, for having their staff working nights, weekends, and even the holidays. So this is an aerial view of the park that was taken last Friday, and I just wanted to hit on several areas of the park. This is the activity pool. We call it the Pirate Cove. I had work done 3 years ago, so it's still in great shape and looks good. This is the baby pool or kiddie pool area, very shallow water, has a pirate theme as well, that you will see a lot of families with young kids in that area. This is the family pool. If you remember from back in the day, it had an island in the middle. The island was taken out almost 2 years ago, and it expanded the size of the pool, including a sun deck. This is the dive well, where you have 2 diving boards, and I'm going to go over the update as far as that work in a couple of slides. And you have 2 lap lanes. As well as the slides, you have 4 that lead into this catch pool here, as well as 1 that leads into the lazy river, and the lazy river which goes around the facility here. Do want to update the main reason, as facilities mentioned back when we had to talk about the closure. This is Pump House 1. Think of this as the heart of all of our operations, and this is where a substantial amount of work was done to get all of this to work. So in order for these pools to be clean and safely filtered, this is where the work had to be done. And then also wanted to show that this is a concession area. Jamie French and Ahmed, who's come over from the accelerator, we are working along with Cormac Gilbin to do an ITN for concessions of that area. So I was with procurement this past week, entertaining the people that are interested in that. So one of the main things that we had to address was the stair tower. And if you look here, there was previously several joints and bolts along with the stairs that were severely corroded and rusted. We were in violation of state requirements for slides, for the slide towers, and these repairs were critical to being able to use the stairs. So if you see here what it used to look like and the repairs that have happened. Brian Deloney and his team was there almost every single day, making sure that we were able to have these stairs. So kudos to him, kudos to the contractor of understanding our timeline and getting it done. The lazy river, we had the contractor come in and acid wash the entire lazy river. This is what it looked like even just a week and a half ago. And then when you see the difference now, night and day. So the slides, paint that was previously installed in 2021 was already chipping. And so we had a company come in, actually got a chance to meet with the company. They were from Missouri. They were very excited to come down and work, brought a crew. I have not seen when you bring that many people to get something done, but they understood what we needed done and they knocked it out fairly quickly. So just so you know, the paint was removed and all slides were gel coated for protection of the slides as well as our patrons. If you've ever gone down a slide and it's not taken care of, you'll have those red marks on your back. We shouldn't have those red marks on our back when we go down these slides, Commissioner McDaniel.
I don't go down those slides.
Once again, what I mentioned about Pump House number 1, this is where we had to do a lot of the work. All new recirculation pumps were installed on all 6 pools. This included installation of VFDs, which are variable frequency drives, to assist with regulating the flow, and new piping to connect to existing filters. Painting, if you can look here, before the painting had, the paint around the amenities had kind of faded. Facilities came in, James Williams' team came in and painted around all of the amenities. And then if you look at the concession building, this is something that people notice and it pops immediately when we were doing the ITN, was this was before, and this is the epoxy flooring that went down. So wonderful renovations there. This is a breakdown of what we've completed thus far. Pump houses, restoration of the slide tower, restoration of the slides, the concrete cracks and joint ceiling, lazy river, as I mentioned, concession flooring, landscaping, and the projects to be completed after we open up for spring break. What's that? Okay, these will be also before we open as well. Thank you, Jamie. Bathroom door frames, Pump House number 1. Geothermal, which Symbion is the company. They have applied for their permits. Pool deck lighting, diving boards, which the diving boards will be in tomorrow and replaced by March 4th. And the other projects that are mentioned are critical, but not, they're not critical to opening. So we'll be able to open even if those projects are not done. I am going to pass it on to Jamie Cook, and she will discuss the permitting and inspection status.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Morning, sorry. Jamie Cook, your Director of Development Review. I was asked to come in October and help with a lot of the capital projects and parks, which is where my involvement has mostly been. And I'm going to talk about some of the permitting and inspections that will be completed prior to opening by the end of next week. So first, the Florida Department of Health, Environmental Health regulates all commercial swimming pools in the state of Florida. James spoke to the new pumps that have been installed for all 6 of the pools that will be opened, and we received permit approval to move forward with the recirculation pumps from the state on February 14th. We have been working very collaboratively with the Department of Health. They've been out on site a couple of times, and we have the opening inspection scheduled for Thursday. As James mentioned, the diving boards won't be completely installed until next week. So we've already spoken to them, and they have on their schedule to come out midweek next week to make sure that the diving boards have been installed as well. The Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Division of Fair Rides is who regulates the slides in the state of Florida. They regulate all water amusement rides. We have an inspection scheduled with them on March 3rd. The way the slide inspections work is typically they have independent contractors who do an initial inspection and then will provide a report to the Division of Fair Rides. That inspector has been out on site multiple times since December and has been very pleased with the work that has been done so far. So some of the pictures that James showed you earlier. So we fully expect that this inspection will pass and we will be able to use those slides next week. And of course, building plan review and inspections, permitting through Collier County is always required. So there are several open permits for the pumps and exhaust fans. Those inspections have commenced, and the fans are expected to be installed by early next week. So as long as those have been installed, we will be able to have that inspection finalized as well. The stair tower, the inspections have commenced. However, we do have a section of the stairs that Brian is going to speak to shortly that do need to be replaced. There's a temporary solution in place currently. So that permit won't be finalized until sometime in April or May. And then the fence repairs and gate installations that have been done, that permit has already been finalized. And again, I know James spoke to it, but we really would like to thank Dr. George's team for all of the work that they did installing the VFDs with the pumps. They showed up with a temporary meter so we could get the Lazy River, which is 300,000 gallons, filled within 2 days. So we thank them for all of their help, and I'd like to turn it over to Brian at this point to talk about the projects that will be done both after spring break as well as next fall. Thank you.
Good morning, Brian Delaney, Facilities Director. I'll go over the projects that are going to be done after spring break, before summer opening, and then after summer. So some of the main projects we have is the Lazy River main drains. This actually went before y'all back in February. So this will be updating the main drains and the structure associated with the main drains to current state standards to keep people from being able to be sucked down and held down underwater with those drains. Slide pool drains, same thing. This one will be actually coming to y'all here in March for the contract award for construction. Again, updating those drains. Previously, those drains were leaking. We have done temporary repairs on those drains, but this is to go in there and make it so we shouldn't have any future issues with them. Replacing the fiberglass with concrete. On the concrete pathways, the pathway behind the slide, the south sides of the slide, between that and the Rexplex, is in need to be replaced based on all the activities we've had out there. We're also going to be upgrading that to a thicker concrete slab so that we can, in the future, have maintenance activities occur back there. We're also going to add a little pathway to one of the mechanical rooms associated with the recplex. On the slide tower, there's a set of stairs at the bottom of it, and in the future, hopefully all the stairs that we intend on replacing. Currently, the construction of the stairs are basically welded in steel with a concrete step poured on them. This creates several issues. It's a maintenance issue. There's a lip associated with the metal, and as the paint ages, it flakes and it creates actually a sharp edge. So you'll see when these open up, we're going to have tape all the way up on every single stair, and that's really to keep that edge from coming loose, even though it's new paint, but it's to protect that edge. So in the future, on these bottom flight of stairs, we're actually cutting out all the metal. We're putting in areas where we can bolt in hot dip galvanized steel, and we're replacing it with fiberglass treads, so that in the future it'll be much easier to maintain, much safer. This is currently how all our other slides are constructed. On the other steps, we'll be actually cutting down that metal edge, so it won't be up as high. So the top part, when you step on it, will be concrete, so you shouldn't have the same issue with paint delamination. But the hope is in the future that we can continue to replace flights of stairs every year as we shut down as part of a maintenance activity. LED lighting, this is just the replacement of the fluorescent lights within the pump houses to LEDs to provide additional lighting and more energy efficiency within the pump houses. Going on to our post-summer activities, we have currently in design, or finishing design and permitting is the interactive water feature. That's that center blue area that you see at the park. There's 2 large basins associated with that were constructed of fiberglass that excessively leak at this point, and that's why the activity is not open. The idea here is to change it out from an interactive water feature to a splash pad, an interactive splash pad like we have at some of our other parks. That would enable us to actually reduce the size of the basins and replace them with concrete basins. The chemical storage area, this is over behind Pump House 1. It's extremely deteriorated from the years of use. So this is to go in there and actually replace it and upgrade it to provide additional secondary containment, and then also to provide shade structure back there, since a majority of our chemical feed pumps along with our chemicals are stored back there, so to get them out of direct rain and sunlight. The dive well renovation, that's going back to that dive pool, is to re-marsite that pool, so just to replace all the marsite in that pool. The wading pool renovation, that includes re-marsiting, retiling, and redoing of the grading around that pool. And then the lazy river, the bond beam replacement. If you ever seen the lazy river, I've heard complaints about the lazy river having leaks in it. This is the reason why the lazy river has leaks in it, because we can't fill it all the way. We actually keep it about a foot and a half down, because if we fill it all the way, that bond beam leaks. So this is to go in there and rip out about 2 feet of the entire pool or entire feature all the way around, and then rebuild that back up and replacing, the tiling, remarsiting, and then the piping all associated with that. That's all I got. Any questions?
Commissioner Hall.
First of all, I want to commend staff for the job that they've done to get this. I've been the one cracking the whip to get this open by spring break. This park was, it wasn't dead, but it was bleeding at the jugular, and it was quickly dying. I mean, it was quickly going to die. And for what we've accomplished to this date is remarkable. I wouldn't take any excuses, and they've put up with me, and they've met the challenge. I mean, from Dr. George's team to permitting to the clerk's office to work with us. I said, get it done, and we'll ask questions later. And you've done an amazing job. And I know that it seems like it's a lot of money. I did meet with the Hunden group, the group that you have to do a study to be able to spend money. And they're fully behind this project to show that it draws tourism. And we'll be paying for a lot of this with actual tourism dollars, so it's not coming out of our capital funds or our general budgets. So hopefully it's going to be paid for. I was kind of shocked to see the $5 million project for the lazy river. hopefully we can get some minds together to where we can get that done to where it's not going to be that much money. I'm joking. But anyway, I just want to commend you. I'm looking forward to this project being open. It's it was neglected for years with no plan for maintenance, no plan for life, and we've completely redone this thing with that maintenance in mind, with that long-term keep, so that we don't face this same issue another 20 years from now. I think 20 years from now, with the plan that we have going forward, it'll still look like a semi-new facility, well taken care of and well used by the community. So I just want to say thank you.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, and that, the lazy river has been a huge issue with this facility not working, an enormous amount of repairs. Do we have to replace that?
Commissioner, we will certainly value engineer this the best we can to kind of patch the holes. But there has been an independent study done. We recognize that around the coping, one of the things that we found is that even when this was constructed, probably did not have good CEI, construction engineering inspection going on, no good owner's representation like we've seen from the regulatory side in the private sector to ensure that things are built correctly. We even saw it with the slide tower. So this park is 20 years old. So the errors and emissions we're way past that time. So this is just something through not properly maintaining it over the years, and Commissioner Hall, I've referred to it as looking abandoned when I got there. It wasn't even primitive, but at the end of the day, it is something that it's going to continue to erode. It is something that is going to continue to need repair unless it's addressed.
So that didn't answer my question.
A repair is required, sir.
Okay. And there's no argument that a repair is required, but the question is, do we have to have it? I mean, it's started off with faulty construction. I remember when they built it 20 years ago plus, it was poorly constructed in the first place. And I'm concerned that because of the expense totals that were in there, that's another $5 million expense associated with this amenity. Is it requisite that we do in fact repair it / replace it?
Sir, it's a feature. If the board's direction was to remove the feature and to think of something different, we would certainly do that. But at this point, we're simply providing you with what those costs would be to repair what's currently there.
Okay, I'd like for us to have that discussion at some particular stage, just to find out whether the relevancy of the expense is warranted.
As would we, sir.
Okay.
It's a very good point. And Commissioner Hall, you're closer to this than anybody else. And that's one of the questions I think that we've all pondered is are there some amenities that just don't need to be in some of these water facilities? The lazy river may be one of those. That's just a question. Perhaps you could evaluate that and let us know. That's going to be coming back in the summertime for contract? Did I see that correct?
Or for the lazy river, that would be on a future agenda that we would be seeking funding for that.
All right. So why don't we spend a little bit of time, Commissioner Hall, and kind of get an idea of how many people in the past have used it? Has it been really well utilized, and do we really need it? You got so many other water features there. It seems like that's just an addition that may not be worth the $5 million to.
Yeah, lazy river necessity. I got it.
All right. Any other Commissioner Caldwell?
Thank you, Chairman. I guess it all comes down to numbers. They're all numbers, right? We can't leave a giant trench around all those pools. It's a hazard. So I mean, it would cost us money to demo it, backfill it, and whatever other landscaping we'd have to do. So we'd have to weigh that against repairing it and having it versus the cost to get rid of it, because I don't think anybody would allow it to exist empty like that. I mean, because it would be a danger for our citizens.
It would definitely have to be filled in if we didn't.
So yeah, I mean, all comes down to the actual nuts and bolts of what's economically more.
Maybe that would be a good location for the new butterfly garden out there.
But I must confess, I have used that lazy river because I am lazy at times.
Commissioner Hall.
I just want to, this is going to be a good time to determine if the lazy river is going to be an actual, feature that people are going to enjoy. It's been down for so long, people have kind of gotten used to not having it, but now that it's going to be up, we'll see how much it's filled up, how much it's utilized, and, we can just, along with the discussion ourselves, we can just ask the people, how important it is to you. To me, Sun and Fun is the slides, and I'm so tickled that those are going to be open, and I'm going to go to the top and scream like a girl too.
So, sir, if I could, just once more, it's not beyond thanking these families, because I can tell you on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I was there, and I was there with crews. It's the families that support our colleagues, that sacrifice their time and their holiday to have them working over the holidays. And I can tell you, as I've been there, much like the Paradise Sports Complex, I'm there on nights and weekends. And I'm, whether I'm helping clean a bathroom or clean out a drain or we're walking this site, you've really, I'm so blessed and so pleased to be able to work with these colleagues. They have really stepped up. So thank you for your support. Certainly thank the county managers for not really, much like you, Commissioner Hall, this was a gravity issue, as I like to refer to them. You can't fight it. So it's just, it is what it is.
Commissioner Hall, you have anything else? All right. Thank you. Well done. I'll take a quick look at that slide over at the Golden Gate Park. There's been a sign up that says the stairwell is under repair. That's been up there, I think, for 2 years.
So, Commissioner, I'll speak to that one real quick for you. Next Monday, when we have the inspector out for Sun and Fun, they are then heading to Golden Gate to look at your slide tower with the intent to have that open for spring break as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Patterson, anything else from your end there?
No, Commissioners, that brings us to item 15C, Staff and Commission General Communications. As we discussed, the workshop is Tuesday, March 4th. We have several topics that we'll be covering.
Just for the public, could you recite what those topics will be?
Yes, sir, and I'll also tell you the order of their appearance. So first thing at 9 a.m., we'll be talking about Clam Pass. We will have representatives from Pelican Bay here to discuss that as previously requested by the board. That will be followed by solid waste and all things trash. So a comprehensive discussion on solid waste in Collier County with Dr. George and his team. And then we'll close it down with a combination of strategic planning, Resource X, and budget, as we touched upon a little bit today. We'll go a little deeper into that, and Mr. Fabian will be here from Resource X. We're still looking for a date. We were supposed to have a mental health workshop the same day. We're still looking for a date that works for our partners on that, and I'll keep you posted. That may end up being, if we have another light day, an afternoon session, if we can make that work on a board day. Other than that, yes, we also will be looking for a date for an AUIR workshop, as asked by the board. And lastly, just for the record, there has been some information circulating about causing some concern to the public about the state of EMS and privatization. Just wanted to put on the record that there is no intent to privatize EMS. We're not trying to hand our EMS service off to a private company or anything like that. There have been discussions, appropriately so, about our med flight, simply because this is one of those areas we're having a very difficult time hiring helicopter mechanics. Without a helicopter mechanic, you have no helicopter. So we did have a great meeting with the med flight folks last week with a strategy to look at not only recruiting trained helicopter mechanics, but also a way that we can maybe train some up in-house, so working with the school system coming out of their aviation programs. So we are continuing, as we have for the last several years, to evaluate the staffing levels at EMS, looking to expand our training programs, really looking forward to Station 74 out on DeSoto opening up and coming up with a a real serious growth plan. We've had 26 ambulances for at least the last decade, and you know the growth that we've experienced in the county in that decade. So looking at all the different ways we cooperate with our partner agencies, as well as how we continue to invest in our EMS system. So hopefully that provides some ease to the public. They'll still be calling 911 and having our first responders showing up at their door. It's not something that we're looking to shut off to a private company.
Okay. I want to add just one thing in terms of the medical director and the email that I think we all got, and I've gotten several emails from folks in the community that have read this material. The email basically said that we were firing Dr. Tober and did it in a way that was not particularly polite. All of that was false. Dr. Tober was advised that his contract was up and that we were going to do what a normal business would do, and that is to rebid, and he was welcome to bid on that. So there was no firing of the medical director and no indication to Dr. Tober that he was not welcomed to continue bidding on that. He's been the medical director for 47 years, so he may choose not to, but he has that option. So all of that information was incorrect. And as the manager said, there was some statement in there that we were looking to privatize EMS behind everybody's back. That's not a discussion this board has ever had in terms of privatization. So the whole email was just completely wrong. And so I appreciate you clarifying that for the record.
Yes, sir, and there's been a little further correspondence on the medical director. However, there was no intent to fire Dr. Tober, and in fact, our chief of EMS did make a call ahead of that letter, which is required by contract, to both Dr. Tober and Dr. Lee to advise them that we were going to be putting it out to bid. It has been 13 years since it was put out to bid, and there had been discussions amongst the folks in EMS about the interest of the sitting medical directors on continuing with that contract. So, and we, again, this is another situation. We can't be without a medical director, just like we can't be without a helicopter mechanic. So that's what's going on, and I welcome if there's if there's questions from the public about this. We're more than happy to answer those questions. I can understand how concerning it would be to think that something was going on with that type of life-saving service that we provide to the public.
I would suggest that it was one of the most important functions of government is when you dial 911 and you need an ambulance, you want someone showing up. So perhaps down the road here, you can give us a little bit of a report on just what the status is and what do we need to do to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community?
Yes, sir. I did talk with the command staff about putting together their plans, obviously coming into this budget, but also one of the highest priority things that we are asking them, have been repeatedly asking them to work on, but with renewed emphasis, is a growth plan. With all of the growth to the east, we really need to think about what we're doing and how we're going to do it and how we're going to provide that service, because that area is growing rapidly, and without a hospital out there, that puts a lot of stress on the system. And so we're looking at partnering with another thing, we're looking at partnering with our fire agencies, definitely not about one taking over the other, but rather how we provide complementary service and how we augment each other.
And if at some point you need some outside assistance in terms of someone coming in and helping make those decisions, making recommendations, I think bringing that to the board would be a wise thing to do. Mr. Klatskow, you have anything else for the good of the order?
No, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Colwall.
No, sir. I'm good.
Commissioner Hall.
I don't have anything, but unequivocally, without a doubt, the word of the day came from Commissioner McDaniel. Actuarials probably will stand as a record for a while.
Is that a 50-cent word for you?
And
actuarials. I had trouble spelling it.
Commissioner McDaniel, could you go ahead and define that for us? Or?
I bet you want me to?
No, just kidding. Just kidding. Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, sir. Thank you. On the helicopter mechanic, our med flight's not the only helicopter. Have we had consult with the mosquito control and sheriff?
We have not with the mosquito control, but we have with the sheriff, and we're actually going to swing back around and have another conversation with them as part of this. The idea of the outsourcing was simply to provide some backfill services in the event. So we do have a helicopter, one right now, and he's been here a very long time. He's excellent. He's our director of something. The director of
Maintenance on the helicopter.
Maintenance, thank you. I lost the word. Director of Maintenance. He is amazing. He is very committed to the program. So he gave us some good ideas of things that we could do. But yes, we've had a pretty regular dialogue with the sheriff's office because they're sitting right next door with helicopters. We can reach out to mosquito control, but I feel optimistic that we've got another plan in place here where we may have some luck recruiting in some talent, and RAM is committed to help bring those folks along. So that's good news.
And so we are communicating with these other agencies that do have helicopters, either other municipalities, because we're not the only ones with the helicopter.
Yeah, at least Lee County, even though it's called Lee Flight, is outsourced completely. But that was one of the reasons why reaching out to these companies to see what types of services they provide in the event that when RAM is on, even in the time he'll be here still, when he's on vacation or he's mandated to take time off because he can only work so many hours, that we would have services there to keep MedFlight up.
Okay. Number two, our East of 951 Horizon Study 2.0 is in need of another alternate to be placed on that committee. And I don't know, do we need to bring an actual agenda item forward for that recommendation, or can I make that now and with consensus go forward?
I'm looking at the county attorney.
Are you asking to amend the ordinance to allow for an alternative?
No. One of the alternates has some health issues.
Okay.
And so there is an applicant that's already there, Bruce Hamels, who I would like to recommend as that replacement for that alternate.
We'll bring it to the board.
So you'll bring it in the first meeting in March. We'll take care of that. And the rest, we want that committee to be well staffed up, because as they're finishing up the decree from the board for its creation, we're going to move into the comp plan review for Golden Gate Estates Rural, and open up that comp plan to have some discussion with the community about land uses and the inevitable growth and things that are going on out there. So I would like to make sure that committee is well staffed up. The third and last thing is I would like to see if we have consensus to do have another look at our rural fringe mixed use district. It's far past time for that to have been touched. We still are looking for the matrix with regard to the credit balance with regard to the TDRs and the needs for the sending and receiving, the generation of the TDRs, and then the consumption of those TDRs. There were some things that were implemented in the initial RF MUD, Rural Fringe Mixed Use District. That's what that stands for. There was similar to what we dealt with the rural land stewardship area. There was it was an arbitrary number. Somebody said, how many acres should a town be? And somebody said 5,000. And then we found out that 5,000 really wasn't an equitable way to go. Similarly, in the Rural Fringe Mixed Use District, lands in the sending area can't be subdivided now less than 40 acres. And so I would like to have this restudy done to analyze whether or not that's an equitable process and what the impacts of our community are.
I would assume there's no objection for having Commissioner McDaniel get with our staff and come back with some sort of an analysis or put it on an agenda.
Well, basically what I'm asking for is to give direction to staff to commence the restudy of that RF, of the Rural Fringe Mixed Use District, and bring back those items to us.
And then what I would suggest, though, can you come back with an agenda item so we know, if we ask staff to do that study, I think we need to know kind of what's involved in it. So maybe come back at the first meeting in March with just
fine.
some kind of a recommendation on that. All right, we're really pleased to see that we have our newest state representative in the audience. Come up and up to the microphone and I was going to ask Mr. Mullins to do two things at our next meeting. One was to give us an update on our Tallahassee trip, because we were up there last week, and there are a lot of issues that we addressed. And so I think at our next meeting, I'll work with Mr. Mullins to give us a report. But one of the most pleasant meetings was with you. We really appreciate everything you're doing for Collier County and for the state.
Well, thank you for taking the time to visit me in Tallahassee. I do appreciate it. Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Saunders, and Commissioner Cowell came up there. Sorry, Commissioner Hall and LaCastro couldn't make the trip, but I'm looking forward to working with all of you for our community. Session is getting ready to start next week. I'm here this week in the district, as you can see, working hard in the community, trying to visit my constituents, and then heading back to Tallahassee on Friday. Deadlines are coming up for bills, so like I said, ready to start on Tuesday, and it's probably going to be like drinking from a fire hose, but we're ready. We're ready for the challenge. And again, I appreciate all you're doing for our county. It's really important that we all work together in the benefit of our community. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. Does any commissioners have any questions or anything?
You wouldn't have wanted me to come up because you would have caught my pneumonia, basically, is what you would have had. So when Commissioner McDaniel called to check on me, he's like, "What's wrong with you?" He's like, I can't even understand you." But I echo thanks. Sorry I missed you on this trip, but it's obvious to see all the great work that you're doing. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah, and I want to take the time to remind our constituents that our office is open. It's right here across the hall from this chamber. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that we're here. And our girl is here in the office, Shavante, to make sure that we can take care of our constituents while I'm away in Tallahassee. Thank you for all you do. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Castro.
Yes, sir. Concerning misinformation on EMS, there's other misinformation that floats around. I'm going to give you a little short Costco update, separate rumor from fact. So I sent out a very detailed newsletter to all my subscribers yesterday that outlined what happens, what doesn't happen, what's rumor, and what's fact. So I'll just give you the basics. Last Tuesday, there was a NIM. It was well attended, but as most NIMs are, it's usually attended by most people that don't want something, which is fine. That's what the NIM's for. We had 2 staff members that were there to just monitor it, make sure that they obviously don't run it. It's the developers meeting with citizens. It's not our meeting, but that's where some of the misinformation started. I got a ton of emails from some people that were looking for the 5 commissioners or me to basically run the NIM, and I had to remind them that this is the developers meeting with citizens. It's not something we do, but the NIM took place. We still have not received anything from Costco formally. You know, obviously there have been conversations on and off with the county forever. I've been working with Mr. Klatskow, Mr. Bosey, Ms. Patterson, and the whole staff on the Costco possible, request for a build, but we have yet to formally get anything that actually shows us exactly what they're requesting. I mean, there's a lot of things floating around that may or may not be correct, but obviously us commenting on anything when we haven't seen their actual formal request would be inappropriate and irresponsible. I sent you all a one-way communication email because I think all of our inboxes are, mine especially, but yours will start to be filled with questions and things like that. And, I'm plugged in with the staff deeply and have been for quite some time. So I welcome you forwarding those to me, or, I've been answering them all personally. Here's how the process could flow. And this is more of informational and then also just to get it on the record. The property is already zoned commercial. If a request came in for Costco, and much like any other construction request, if it met all of the permitting, all of the requirements of that piece of land, then they work with the county, they get permits, just like if you're going to build a house, and they put shovels in the ground. We have it on pretty good authority, though, that although they meet most of the requirements, and obviously the 25-acre parcel is already zoned commercial, but if they have a request for any variances, the way the process normally works, if the variances aren't too complicated, if they're not if there isn't too much meat on the bone, they're pretty cut and dry, it actually just goes to the HECS. And the hearing examiner would decide those variances and then say yay or nay, and they'd be done. We'd never see it. We have to wait and see what those variances are. But if they happen to be that, the normal procedure would be it goes to the HECS. If we think, however, when it comes in that those variances are maybe a little more heavy lifting than just putting on one person at the HECS, and I'm telling you this from conversations that I've had with our county attorney and our staff, then we do have a few options, and the strong recommended option is if those variances are, bigger than a breadbasket, that we have the option to bypass the HEX and send it to the Planning Commission first. The Planning Commission, as Mr. Klatskow, I really appreciated you sending this to me because I didn't have the actual verbiage, but when it comes to the responsibilities of the Planning Commission, one of their sub-bullets are, for us, is we can, that they exist to make, if there's any special knowledge or expertise available, we can make a reasonable request from the BCC. That the bottom line is that they hear anything to help vet out the questions, to give a bigger spotlight to the topic, and also allow citizens in a much bigger forum to speak to 7 people on the Planning Commission rather than one hearing examiner. So, just to recap, if variances are minimal, the hearing examiner is the next step. If variances are medium to large, our strong recommendation across the entire staff is that we utilize the Planning Commission's expertise to have them hear it first, and then they obviously don't vote. They make a recommendation, or they vote, but then their vote is a recommendation then to us, and then at such time after the Planning Commission, it would come to us, like I said, if this request sort of flowed. So. A couple of takeaways from the NIM. Obviously, the NIM, when it's run by a developer, the developer's pitch to the citizens made it sound like, to some, that shovels were going in the ground tomorrow. They used terms like, that we might be requesting some variances, but they gave the impression that they're mere formalities, when it comes to approval. And we know that not to be so. So this is still a ways away. I want to make sure, and Mr. Klatskow and Mr. Bosey and Ms. Patterson, when we've talked about it, we want to be completely transparent. We want to use all of the things that we have at our disposal to give citizens a voice, pro or con, to give the developer a chance to present their case, and then for us to have the table set for us as much as possible with as much detail. So when it comes to us, we have it packaged in a way that we have all of the details on all sides, and it would make our job a lot easier. But it's not coming to us tomorrow. We still haven't gotten anything from Costco, like I said, and so we'll continue to have it flow. But those are the options as to the different tracks that it possibly could go. Still too early to tell which road it might go down, but I'll continue to keep you posted. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The only thing I have is I'm going to ask Mr. Mullins at our first meeting in March to advise the board. I know we have some repairs that are going to take place in this room that are going to require that this room basically be shut down for a couple of weeks because of doing the work and then making sure everything is working properly. And most of that's communications infrastructure. So we're going to need to potentially alter our meeting schedule at some point. Because the room's going to have to be vacant for a couple of weeks. So, Mr. Mullins, if you could come back in the first meeting in March, and let's see what we have to do and how it impacts our schedule. And I think at that time also, first meeting in March, maybe we can have a little summary of basically for the public more than for the board, but a little update on what we did in Tallahassee and why that expenditure of funds for travel to Tallahassee is money well spent. Maybe even a little bit of a history as to how much money Collier County has gotten in grants and things like that from the legislature, a lot of which is due to members of this commission meeting with legislators and actually traveling to Tallahassee to meet with members of the legislature that are not from Southwest Florida but are in very critical positions in the legislature. So is the first meeting in March sufficient time? All right. Other than that, I don't have anything. If there's nothing else,
I just got
Castro?
just as a reattack here, I just got a note from the staff. I neglected in my Costco update. I actually do need us to, I guess, where's Jamie Cook, to actually vote on this? Okay. So the strong expectation is the variances we're going to get from Costco are going to have a little bit of meat on the bone. And one of the things that we want to do is give as much notice to all the parties, pro, con, Costco, everybody, even the Planning Commission, of the path that we believe we should follow. If something changes, we can always, backtrack. But I guess the decision up here, and I would hope that, collectively would have, unanimous support that this is a smart way to go based on the county's guidance, is that if something comes to us that the county staff county attorney, I, and that I know we would all believe would be bigger than what the hex should say, that we are all in agreement that utilizing the Planning Commission as the next step instead of the hex would be smart, and then they would give us a recommendation, we would go forward. So, Ms. Cook, if you can just nod, is that a motion I should make so that this way, and by doing this right now, it's officially letting all the parties know that there's no ambiguity as to the set stages of where things would go. So I'll make a motion that with all the information we have, we believe there'll be some variances that will be a little bit of a deeper dive than what normally we would lay on the hex, and that utilizing our 7-member planning commission that has a lot of experience to vet this topic first and then give us a recommendation would be the way to go.
We have a motion and a second, but before we vote on the motion, I want to ask the county attorney to make sure that we're not overreaching here in terms of what our procedures are. In your opinion, the motion, I think, would be to send this to the Planning Commission. We have that motion made without the property owner being informed that this was coming up. So I want to make sure we're not doing something that's going to jeopardize or interfere with our authority here. So give us a little bit of advice.
The hearing examiner was created for non-controversial items. If you got a couple hundred people showing up, that's no longer a non-controversial item. So that my expectation is that the hearing examiner would kick it to the board anyway. I recently did that with the matter involving Alfie Oaks. But this board is entirely within its purview to direct that to go to the Planning Commission for recommendation
So the
to this
motion
board.
and the second, the motion, we can vote on that today, and that's fits with our procedures.
We're good.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. Then we'll have the Planning Commission and the County Commission hear those issues as it relates to Costco. I have nothing else. If seeing none, we are adjourned.